This movie sucks. Back in February of 2021, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were playing in the Super Bowl. I was very confident that the Bucs were going to win, and I would then have to hear from idiots that a certain quarterback was the greatest on the basis of titles. As Kansas City fell farther behind, I asked myself, what could I do to become more annoyed? The answer was obvious. Watch Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, a sequel I despise more than any other. Now, I enjoy long-form video essays on films, and I found myself thinking, I could give that treatment to this dumpster fire of a movie. I first saw T3 as a 13-year-old when my cousin Tim, who knew I loved the first two Terminator movies, rented it for me from Blockbuster. As he pulled it off the shelf, he said, "You'll like it."
So what's the deal?
I am going to tear this movie apart scene by scene. Maybe you will see T3 the way I do by the end, maybe not.
Why bother, Major?
I'm kind of retarded.
Mainly to amuse myself and a few others. I do not claim to be an expert on cinema or anything, just a guy who enjoys learning more about storytelling.
And I learn. I get better.
No, you don't understand.
I do.
No, you don't.
Anyways, T3 is where I stopped watching this series. Making this video has made me curious to watch the films that came after it. I am holding off on that until I am done with the video, but it is fairly safe to say that as this goes live on YouTube, I will be watching Terminator Salvation for the first time. Perhaps I will be pleasantly surprised. But I doubt it. Something to note before we get started. This is a critique of Terminator 3. It is not a critique of any novelizations, comics, video games, toys, fanfics, graffitis, or other such things. Spoilers ahead for this film, the two that precede it, and probably a few other pieces of media along the way. The first thing to address is this film's existence. Can it exist logically, and should it have been made? John Connor himself raises an obvious objection.
You shouldn't even exist. I mean, we took out Cyberdyne over 10 years ago, but we stopped Judgment Day.
Our heroes from Terminator 2 believed that they had prevented Judgment Day by destroying Cyberdyne and all Terminator technology in the present day. Given the events of the previous film, is it possible that Skynet still rises and brings about Judgment Day, the future war, and so on? By the rules of the Terminator series, yes. Skynet in the original timeline arose without technology from the future. Therefore, we must grant that it is possible here. So it is not a logical contradiction that Judgment Day still occurs 10 years later than it otherwise would have. The next question is, should it have occurred? Let us consider the cost of doing so, to characters and to the Terminator world. When someone achieves something great, we may react with admiration, or awe, or envy. If we learn later that the accomplishment was substantially less than was thought, a certain disappointment arises, even if it comes through no one's fault. Imagine if casting the One Ring into the fire of Mount Doom had only forced Sauron into a decade-long period of hibernation. After harvesting enough souls, or using ancient magical techniques, or collecting various artifacts of power, he reconstitutes himself and menaces Middle-earth with the threat of his domination once more. This would not lessen the dangers the Fellowship endured, nor the courage of great warriors who opposed Sauron. Yet it would make The Lord of the Rings substantially less satisfying. For this to happen in the story itself would be bad enough. For a later work by a different author to come along and declare it retroactively would be met with outrage. Back to Terminator 3. The film offers a reason for this.
We took out Cyberdyne over 10 years ago, but we stopped Judgment Day.
You only postponed it. Judgment Day is inevitable.
The future's not set. There's no fate but what we make for ourselves.
Judgment Day is inevitable.
The future's not set.
Inevitable.
Not set.
Inevitable.
Not set.
For someone who likes Terminator 2, this ranges from a lame explanation to a slap in the face. Our heroes risked their lives to prevent the immolation of the human race. They did as thorough a job as they could, despite incredible obstacles. Yet now we are told that their sacrifices merely bought some time. This is not to say those deeds were done in vain. Time can be extremely valuable. Consider the video game Mass Effect. At the end of it, you stave off the destruction of sentient life in the galaxy. This turns out to be critical, as it allows various factions to prepare for the coming threat and ultimately defeat it. Were it not for the actions of Commander Shepard and his band, the galaxy likely would have been purged of advanced civilization. However, a crucial point here is that in the game you know that the best you can do is forestall Armageddon, whereas Terminator 2's promise is that it has been prevented. There is no way around this fact. Terminator 3 retroactively diminishes the victory achieved by our heroes from Terminator 2.
Why the hell did you do that?
Then there is the matter of Judgment Day being inevitable. Not only is no fate a theme in Terminator 2, but each of the first two films is predicated upon the idea that altering the past can change the future. There would be no point in sending the original Terminator back in time if this were not so. The best argument I could think of to support this statement is this line.
It's in your nature to destroy yourselves.
Yeah. Major drag, huh?
There's no doubt that mankind has many self-destructive tendencies. Meddling with forces beyond our comprehension. The concentration of enormous power in governments and corporations. The tendency to make war. All of these are interesting topics and have helped constitute countless compelling stories. However, why must our downfall take the form of nuclear annihilation brought on by Skynet? Might humanity's destruction come in a completely different form? Suppose that the elimination of Cyberdyne allows the company DyneCyber to fill a void in defense spending. They develop a system of defense against nuclear weapons called NetSky. NetSky completely neutralizes nuclear missiles, can detect nuclear weapons from hundreds of miles away with perfect accuracy, etc. Nuclear weapons are rendered useless by this development, and the prospect of atomic annihilation is no more. Humanity rejoices at having removed the threat of mutually assured destruction from peoples everywhere. With nuclear weapons obsolete, biological weapons might take on a prominent role. Perhaps a film in which such scourges are unleashed on mankind. Or conventional warfare on a scale even greater than the Second World War becomes possible, and the globe is consumed in a conflict of unparalleled devastation. A terrorist leader of great cunning and ruthlessness simultaneously seizes control of decommissioned stocks of warheads and deactivates NetSky, allowing him to bring on a dystopia in which he rules and the survivors must rebel. What should have been a civilizing stroke of genius leads to more bloodshed than anyone could have imagined. I do not propose that a Terminator sequel portray any of these scenarios. Merely that it does not seem reasonable to me that humanity's greatest crisis must take the form of nuclear betrayal by a self-aware AI, even if we take the T-800 at his word about our natures. Humanity has many flaws and many potential avenues of self-destruction. Terminator 3 offers no compelling reason for Skynet having a monopoly on that destruction. So, Terminator 3 being centered around Judgment Day robs previous protagonists of their putative prize and promises that none can prevent a plutonium purging of people across the planet. These are the costs this film imposes simply by existing with its core story element. An inauspicious start, to say the least. With that out of the way, let's begin the movie. The film opens with John Connor's monologue explaining that Judgment Day came and went, how this affected him, and what he is up to. John has lost his purpose and has grown reckless, leading to him injuring himself in a motorcycle accident.
Oh, that's smart.
Next, we have the arrival of the antagonist, a highly advanced Terminator. We learn later that the designation is TX. Thinking back on what we know about Terminators, her appearance is a strange choice by Skynet's assassin. Terminators have always relied on stealth.
But these are new. They look human. Sweat, bad breath, everything. Very hard to spot.
Serious wounds must be healed when possible, and concealed when necessary. The T-1000 was great for this, since he can take on any appearance and need not worry about flesh wounds. The TX has the same capacity, minus the ability to hide as a section of floor due to her metal skeleton. Why then does the TX look like a woman straight out of a men's magazine? This makes her stand out and hinders her ability to move about unnoticed. Now, we have seen a couple of Terminators that do not exactly blend in with a crowd. The difference is that those had large metal skeletons, meaning they had a certain bulk to begin with. Presumably the tissue Skynet manufactured was more durable or healed better when densely muscled. The bodybuilder physique is a trade-off for being able to encase the endoskeleton in living tissue. These are perfectly good reasons for the Model 101 Terminators to look the way they do. In addition, these machines select clothing that hides their burliness. Finally, to the extent that these Terminators are conspicuous, the blame falls on Skynet, not the killing machines themselves. The TX, on the other hand, may assume various forms, just as the T-1000 before her. Not only does the TX opt to look like a woman who would draw the eyes of every man around, but she also appears in form-fitting, cleavage-revealing attire. Look, I get it. Eye candy in film sells tickets. In many cases, the good looks serve some plot purpose, and in most of the rest, it isn't a detriment to the character's intelligence. What we have in Terminator 3 is the rare character who can make her appearance whatever she pleases, and, despite logic dictating she blend in via nondescript looks, she makes herself conspicuous. This is not a promising start from our villainess. It gets even more perplexing later in the film when we receive this information.
TX is designed to terminate other cybernetic organisms.
She's an anti-Terminator. Terminator?
If we follow the line of logic that the TX was made to destroy other Terminators, rather than to infiltrate, what purpose does the TX's sexy appearance have? Are we to believe that other Terminators would get caught staring at her with their mouths agape, so that she could get the drop on them? That makes no sense. In any event, that would still not absolve the TX from blame for choosing a guise that will draw unnecessary attention.
Doesn't want you to do too much thinking, huh?
No.
Anyways, this movie tries to show us how this could be useful when she gets pulled over for running a red light. As the officer approaches the TX's car, she spots a billboard in which a woman's breasts are prominently displayed. This leads her to substantially increase the size of her own bosom. Aha! Her sexy appearance pays dividends as the officer is momentarily speechless at the sight of her feminine assets. She uses this opportunity to sit there until he proceeds to demand her license and registration. The window of opportunity created by this distraction is gone. Curses. Well, let's see what the TX has up her sleeve.
I like your gun.
What?
Okay, so she just killed him anyway and took his weapon. It seems to me that she could have accomplished this with ease regardless of how she looks. Best I can tell, that momentary hesitation on the part of the police officer is the only point in this film in which the TX makes use of her sexy appearance, and it accomplished nothing.
Good job.
This is the first of several times I'm going to put forward ideas of how this film could have been improved within its context. The more of these I can bring forth, the weaker the writing is for having missed solutions that a layman spotted. So, the TX makes her breasts bigger, and while the officer is momentarily captivated, she shows off social skills on a level not seen from a Terminator before, taking the initiative in the exchange and quickly persuading him that he does not need to see her identification. We could see a view from her heads-up display where the text "pheromones released" could appear, indicating that there is a chemical element to her beguiling charm. As the officer turns from her, grinning like a fool, to walk away, she picks his pistol and ammunition from his belt with great subtlety. Or you could imply the picking by showing the gun and clips in the passenger seat after she drives off. This sequence would show how the TX might gain an advantage from her good looks, while also demonstrating both physical and social finesse. She obtains a rapid-firing weapon while simultaneously preventing the police from being on the lookout for her. It makes her seem cleverer and more intelligent than previous Terminators, thus making her more formidable.
We need to move Lonzo.
That ain't no problem.
Huh?
That ain't no problem.
The reason I am going over this is that Terminator films rely on the audience viewing the antagonist as a serious threat. The poorer her choices, the less menacing she is. We will see how she stacks up in this regard as we go along. Next, we meet the film's female lead, Kate Brewster, and her fiancé, Scott Mason. She reacts the way most of us would to technological trouble.
Stupid thing's not working.
Then says this.
I hate machines.
Who wrote that? Yes, we in the audience know that Kate is likely to cross paths with a hostile Terminator at some point. It is a foregone conclusion that she shall indeed come to hate machines. Ooh, foreshadowing. Except for the fact that the line sounds stupid and contrived. Do you hate your cell phone? Your trusty truck? How about your father's plane? Who refers to modern technology as machines anyway?
I hate machines.
Look, it's a minor line with no real relevance. I understand. I take umbrage at it because this is the sort of silly line that a competent writer would take one look at and say, "No, let's have her say, isn't technology supposed to make our lives easier?" instead. Back to Kate. She's a well-put-together young woman, engaged to a milquetoast fellow. Her father is the typical career military man. He barely knows his daughter's fiancé because he is busy with his work. He does give us the following insight.
I've never had to be afraid for my daughter.
An interesting statement, given that she works at a veterinary clinic that junkies break into on such a regular basis that she is not even surprised when she finds signs of another burglary. At any rate, father and daughter love each other and promise to spend time together soon. Papa Brewster then confers with a technical advisor, who informs the audience that a computer virus is wreaking havoc across the country. The sentiment of many higher-ups is that Skynet should be used to defeat the virus and return things to normal. Papa Brewster declines to anticlimactically end the film less than 20 minutes in, and gives the advisor a negative answer. It would be easy to mock the script for not giving us a reason for this decision, but we will accept Papa Brewster's soldier's intuition. There's plenty of movie left for us to learn why he is not prepared to pull the trigger on the AI. As our venerable Lieutenant General broods, the final member of this film's quadrumvirate arrives. A Model 101 Terminator, hereinafter referred to as the T-850, materializes in the desert outside of Los Angeles. Despite flames licking his lower body, an apparently unsinged cyborg strongly resembling a middle-aged Austrian bodybuilder steps ponderously into the sands.
Vanderlee has assigned me the peacekeeping occupation of this district.
But wait a minute, let's back up. We see the TX arrive, next we meet Kate and Scott, then the T-850 arrives. The movie gives us no indication that these events are shown out of chronological order. The phone the TX uses indicates that it is past 11 p.m. Why are these two out shopping so late? This strikes me as a situation in which this scene is supposed to be during the daytime, but the director decided not to show the cyborg arrivals consecutively, so this got dropped in between them. Very odd editing. Meanwhile, John, having hitched a ride into town, breaks into a veterinary clinic to obtain painkillers. Seeing as it is late at night and in a somewhat secluded area, I would guess that this is the only way he can get what he needs to deal with his injury. Next, we get our traditional clothes acquisition scene. The T-850 enters a saloon on ladies' night. After concluding that women's clothing is not suitable, our titanium time traveler selects the male stripper as the source of garb. The T-850 tells the stripper to take off his clothes. In response, the stripper says, "Patience, honey," and throws a glove in the T-850's face. Patience, honey. To the Terminator. Terrific.
Whoa, bitch! Wait your turn!
You're close.
Talk to the hand!
Now.
Right then. Regardless of whether the Terminator is an antagonist or a protagonist, any humor that occurs in these scenes is minimal, and none of it is exhibited by the Terminator. Contrast this.
Talk to the hand!
Now.
With this.
You forgot to say please.
The T-800 does not say please at this moment because he understands that it is an admonition and not a condition of acquiring clothes. The biker then gives him an excuse to demonstrate his might and remove the element of choice. Here, the T-850 is either trying to be funny, or he thinks that talking to the hand will get him what he wants. Based on something we learn later, I have to conclude that it is the former. Thus, we have a facetious Terminator, a comedic killer robot from the future. Not only that, but he allowed the stripper to call him honey and bitch and throw a glove in his face with no repercussions. While we cannot expect the kind of brutality we saw in the original film, the fact that the Terminator is the protector again does not mean it is a good idea to undermine his formidability for the sake of cheap. What the fuck? Meanwhile, the diabolical TX is about to accomplish something neither the original Terminator nor the T-1000 managed. Successfully terminate a target. Unlike those android assassins, the TX has a list of 24 potential victims, mostly future resistance leaders who will help John defeat the machines. I welcome this shift in mission. It shows a certain pragmatism on the part of Skynet. Instead of gambling it all on removing John Connor from the picture, the machines aim to eliminate enough important human leaders to cripple the opposition. The TX promptly terminates 3 would-be future insurgents. For a brief moment, things are moving along fine. I think to myself, maybe this movie will turn out okay.
Sorry, folks. This apparently can't last.
By a great coincidence, John is broken into the same clinic at which Kate works. By another substantial coincidence, Kate gets called in to deal with an animal emergency before the clinic opens. This clinic proves to be a confluence of consecutive coincidences. I shall return to those shortly, but first let's progress a bit. Kate arrives at the clinic, discovers the break-in, and is confronted by John when she starts calling the police. She is level-headed and quickly processes information, namely that John does not wield a firearm, but an airsoft gun that fires miniature paintballs. She thinks on her feet, coming up with a good lie about what the painkillers actually are, and uses a simple maneuver to distract John and get the upper hand. Given that Kate is supposed to become an important leader in the future, this sequence does not damage John's credibility too much. He is injured on painkillers, is bluffing with a fake weapon, and has no way of knowing that Kate is as shrewd as she is. After Kate allows the woman with the sick cat inside, we learn of another coincidence.
You're John Connor.
Kate and John knew each other in junior high, and here they are again. We have little time to ponder this imponderably unlikely coincidence because... I wish. The TX arrives several minutes after Kate shows up and murders the woman with the sick cat. I mean, she doesn't use the sick cat to kill the woman, she kills the woman who brought the sick cat. Let's consider this for a moment. The TX has shown that she can gain information about where her various targets work or live. She kills Jose Barrera at a fast food joint, and later the Anderson siblings at their home. It is therefore reasonable that she could learn where Kate works. However, it is several hours before the clinic opens, so why would the TX decide to go there? Since the TX managed to learn that Barrera worked the night shift, surely she would also know when the clinic opens and when she could reasonably expect Kate to arrive. Why would the TX come here instead of going to Kate's home? The short answer is that the writers need her to be here in order to get the plot moving. I shall show how the TX being stupid leads to our heroes surviving later, but here she has to be stupid to make the confrontation happen in the first place.
Stupid! Stupid! Stupid!
Next, we learn that the TX can identify DNA by licking blood, and thus learns that John Connor is in the vicinity.
Do you believe it's strawberry milkshake?
No, I would not believe that.
Melted gumdrops?
No.
After a brief chase, she puts Kate under her heel and demands the location of the future hero, when suddenly... We have now completed the quintet of coincidences that makes this one of the most contrived sequences in all of film. John coming to Kate's place of work, Kate getting called in for an emergency, the two having known each other before, the TX showing up despite available information pointing in other directions, and the T-850 arriving to save the day within minutes. Let us contrast this with Pescadero State Hospital from Terminator 2. In that instance, there are 4 factions at work: John and the T-800, the T-1000, Sarah Connor, and the hospital staff, led by Dr. Silberman. Obviously, it makes sense that Sarah, Silberman, and company are there. John has a personal interest in rescuing his mother. The T-800 points out that the T-1000 is likely to use Sarah's guise to complete his mission. As was pointed out earlier, the T-1000 must sample her by physical contact. This would almost certainly result in her death, thus cementing John's decision to extract her from the hospital. Sarah attempts to escape the very night the 2 outside factions enter. This is not coincidental in the slightest. Earlier that evening, she was shown photographs of the T-800 taken in the morning. Realizing that another Terminator has come back and recognizing the danger to her son, her only choice is to escape. Not only does the scene yield more than sufficient motivation to make a break, but it also provides the means, an overlooked paperclip that she will use to remove her restraints and pick the lock on the door. The T-1000 heads to Pescadero because he knows John will not return to his foster parents. Thus, all 4 factions have completely valid reasons to be doing what they are, and the events unfold in a suspenseful manner. This makes the coincidence cavalcade in the sequel look exactly how it is, painfully contrived. Our intrepid intertemporal infiltrator arrives just in the nick of time to inconvenience the insidious ingenue, trap Kate in the back of a truck, have a poorly written introduction to John, and get the humans on the road. Though we have not heard the T-850 say it, he knows the following.
TX is faster, more powerful, and more intelligent.
The T-850 knows that he cannot damage the TX with his weapon, nor do the shotgun blasts appear to be slowing her down as she primes her plasma cannon. Instead of wasting ammunition, why not sprint around erratically, creating a more difficult target?
Need a moving target.
We learn later that the TX's plasma cannon takes time to recharge after each shot. Given that the T-850 has knowledge of the weapons available to his adversary, evading a plasma shot would force the TX to either bring out a different, perhaps less effective weapon, or engage in time-consuming melee combat. Instead, the T-850 glacially moves about the parking lot, allowing himself to get nailed square in the chest by the TX's plasma cannon. Then again, perhaps I am being a bit harsh. Maybe the T-850 isn't capable of moving around in an agile manner. With her opponent subdued for the time being, our metal maiden of mayhem reveals the ability to hack into the computers in cars and control them remotely. This is quite the capability and makes the TX that much more of a threat. even if that's not how CPUs in cars work. Anyway, this kicks off a chase sequence involving many vehicles and an abundance of action. As spectacle goes, it is decent enough. Oh sure, I can pick at various small issues. How does the T-850 rack the pump on his shotgun this way? How did the vehicles under the TX's control track John when the TX has no vision on the situation? How do the T-850's sunglasses stay on after this? My main problems with the sequence are merely components of larger issues with the film, specifically the handling of the two Terminators. More on that later. Something positive for a change. In writing the script for this video, I kept notes under several headings. One of these is, things I like / makes sense. The first item on this list is the T-850 using the crane's cable to wreck the vehicle and end the TX's pursuit. Mind, I find it slightly questionable why the T-850 deemed it necessary to pull this move before rejoining John and Kate. Did he predict that the TX would manage to recover, roll, and latch onto the crane again and promptly re-enter the cabin? Did he hear the sound of the TX grabbing on? I suppose the T-850 is not taking chances, and fair enough. We get to enjoy a solid end of chase action, even if the CGI of the crane does not hold up terribly well. With that done, it is time for the writers to embarrass John Connor.
Do you even remember me? Sarah Connor? Blowing up Cyberdyne? Hasta la vista, baby? Ring any bells?
That was a different T-101.
Now, I realize that John has had a rough go of it lately, but there is no way for him to conclude that this is the same Terminator that protected him in the previous film after this happened. The writers also butcher the designation of the current protector by using the term T-101.
Cyberdyne Systems Model 101.
101 refers to the appearance of the Terminator, not the hardware. The T prefix is used to designate the type, T-800, T-850, T-1000, TX, etc. We are then treated to this exchange.
What, do you guys come off an assembly line or something?
Exactly.
On the surface, innocuous enough, serving the purpose of letting the T-850 utilize some of that flat, almost autistic delivery that is part of his charm. However, John knows that such Terminators are mass-produced. He knew that the Terminator that hunted his mother before his birth resembled the one he encountered in the mall, hence his look of terror, even before the T-800 revealed the shotgun hidden in the box of roses. They could have given Kate this line later and spared John. Anyway, these lines serve the purpose of explicitly telling the audience that the T-850 in this film and the T-800 in the previous one are wholly distinct characters. Because there is no way we could have worked that out on our own. Also, remember that poorly written meeting between these two I mentioned earlier? After John manages to escape the cage in the clinic, he encounters the T-850 in a hallway. John looks worried as the T-850 approaches in slow motion and says,
John Connor, it is time.
John then asks the T-850 if he is going to kill him. The T-850 steps closer ominously, prompting John to look scared, before saying,
No, you must live.
Why would John, who has only known the Model 101 as an ally, ask this question? Hell, even without that experience, why ask a Terminator about his intentions? Why the pause in the T-850's response? We in the audience know he's a good guy. It's done to create doubt, at the cost of acting inconsistently with a previous Model 101.
So what's the deal?
My mission is to protect you.
Matter of fact. You might even say robotic. You know, because he's a Terminator. Anyway, back to the scene in the truck. The only commendable thing to say here is in regards to this exchange.
Have you sustained injury?
Drop dead, you asshole!
I'm unable to comply.
On the surface, the T-850 is engaging in a bit of humor, but this also foreshadows the fact that the T-850 must obey Kate's orders, hence his explanation for not dropping dead. As bad as the writing is in this film, it would not surprise me if this was simply intended to be a moment of levity, and I am reading more into it than was intended. But my explanation fits in perfectly and enhances the T-850's consistency while still allowing this moment to be amusing. I try to interpret things as favorably towards the movie as I can. This helps me avoid making weak criticisms.
Nothing sloppy, nothing weak.
The T-850 begins cutting open his chest to remove the fuel cell damaged by the TX's plasma cannon, while providing information about the enemy Terminator. He says that he is obsolete in comparison, and that it is unlikely he can defeat her. He then throws the damaged cell out, causing it to detonate as they drive off. For some odd reason, Kate does not start yelling until after a couple of lines of dialogue.
Relax.
I've read complaints that Kate's role in this film is to yell in fright most of the time, but she doesn't even do that right. Let's take a little time to examine the TX.
TX is faster, more powerful, and more intelligent. It's a far more effective killing machine.
The TX bears several similarities to the T-1000. Both are comparatively sleek Terminators. They have the ability to disguise themselves. They have high thresholds for damage, and they are supposed to be at least as intelligent as the Terminators opposing them.
More intelligent, more intelligent, more intelligent.
No.
Here is the basic problem with the TX. She is so powerful that she must act stupidly in order to keep her from succeeding. Let us consider how previous Terminators failed to kill Sarah or John Connor prior to each film's climax, with the TX's thwarted efforts in this one. The Terminator is blasted back by Reese's shotgun twice before firing. Since the Terminator must focus on Sarah to shoot her, Reese manages to gain position each time and prevent the fatal shot. The Terminator takes a direct line of approach to kill Sarah. Reese skillfully uses the vehicle to dislodge the cyborg, nothing much more the Terminator could have done. He reacquires his prey by listening to the police radio chatter. The Terminator lands many hits on the vehicle before Reese scores a lucky shot to the eye, causing him to crash and damage his right arm. With the police seconds away, he opts to retire for repairs rather than continue the assault. The Terminator does not catch a glimpse of his target until it is too late. He has run out of ammunition in his rifle, and by the time he could acquire a vehicle, Reese would have gained enough distance to begin evasive maneuvers. The Terminator also suffered numerous bullet wounds to his flesh. Presumably he plans to patch these up. The T-1000 is first knocked off balance by a shotgun blast, then body blocked by the T-800, and finally momentarily incapacitated by more shotgun fire. This one deserves a bit of criticism. The T-1000 empties his clip into the frame of the T-800. Given the slim to zero probability of penetrating the cyborg, why burn through all available bullets, thus allowing the T-800 to secure John in a breaker room and turn around to do battle? Does the T-1000 not realize the nature of his adversary? Given the thoughtful look when informed about him, unlikely. What would the T-800 have done if the T-1000 had not fired and simply waited? If he had begun closing the distance without firing?
Shit!
The T-1000 would have been quite the pioneer in the field of future robot assassination, but alas, he keeps blasting away. We may also criticize the T-1000 for not recovering his pistol on the way down the stairs, but it is plausible that he has exhausted his reserve ammunition. The T-1000 was very limited in his choice of vehicle for this pursuit. The tow truck had a running board, making it the only one nearby available for hijacking. Considering the route this chase took, the T-1000 did rather well. In the end, the T-800 had a superior vehicle and managed to get John the separation he needed. Here, firing into the T-800's back is more forgivable, since the target is not cradled in the protector's arms but running in front of him down the hall. The chance to hit John is there. Beyond this, the T-1000 pursues well, nearly making it into the vehicle to slay John. In almost every case, the causes of these failures are lack of information, lack of resources, intense enemy opposition, good moves by our heroes, or other factors that do not reflect poorly on the villain's judgment. Now let's examine the TX's various attempts to kill Kate and/or John.
More intelligent.
Oh, really?
She is not attempting to kill Kate at this moment. I shall talk about this in a bit. The TX can reasonably assume that John is rapidly fleeing the premises. Instead of hustling out of the clinic, plasma cannon at the ready, she saunters through the front door at a leisurely pace, completely unprepared to deal damage at long range. Given the information at the TX's disposal, this is stupid. This is no doubt done because the TX has not revealed her built-in weaponry, and the writers want to give it an impressive introduction. What's worse is that the TX earlier moved swiftly to pursue Kate out into the very same parking lot. Why the urgency then and not now?
Brilliant.
More intelligent.
Needing a vehicle after the T-850 blew up her stolen Lexus, why does the TX choose the crane in lieu of one of the squad cars? Those can certainly catch the vet truck. We see them do exactly that. The TX would need only maneuver alongside and fire one shot from her plasma cannon at the truck. She would be able to get as close as she pleased for that shot if she took the squad car. Instead, she fires from the crane and manages to have the shot intercepted by a vehicle crossing the line of fire. The slow speed of the crane also allows the T-850 to catch up and interfere with the termination. Ultimately, the choice of vehicle was crucial to the TX's failure to kill John and Kate. Not only this, but considering the damage done to the hero's vehicle and the availability of other cars, the TX could probably have continued the chase without delay. Come to think of it, what happened to the remotely controlled vehicles? Shouldn't they be nearby? Did they all get put out of commission by repeatedly colliding with the less durable vet truck? Seems she should be able to have one roll up swiftly, get in, and keep chasing our heroes.
Brilliant.
Having impersonated Kate's fiancé, the TX proceeds to walk towards the target, morph back into her preferred guise, and bring out the plasma cannon. It bears noting that the TX stopped the car herself. From that point, there is no reason not to immediately begin priming the cannon. The TX wastes at least 24 seconds of real time. A few seconds of Kate are in slow motion, and we do not see precisely when the cannon begins to come into play, only to get blasted away by an RPG at the last moment. Incidentally, how does the TX not see the hearse in her peripheral vision?
I see everything.
Or hear the thing? As far back as this scene, we have known that Terminators can hear.
Nice night for a walk.
Well, I suppose he could be reading lips. Okay, now we know that Terminators can hear.
Hi there. Fooled you.
Anyway, the amount of time the TX wasted here allows Kate to live. Another approach would have been to maintain the guise of Scott, Kate's fiancé. He could start running toward her, relief palpable on his face. Either she would run into his arms and die, or she would notice the corpses and broken windows in the front of the car and begin running. At which point the TX would chase her down and kill her. Still another option is to reach into the front and relieve one of the recently deceased detectives of his gun and fill Kate with lead. Remember how the first two films built tension during termination attempts? Near misses, slow motion, doing things a human could not. In none of those instances was the assailant being blatantly stupid. These moments crank the tension up. Damn, that was close. Oh shit, here he comes. What is this?
Deaf, mad, and blind.
More intelligent.
The TX has one last attempt at killing our heroes before the third act. She plays this situation better than the last three, though still poorly. Instead of leaping on the hearse, why does she not blast it with the cannon from atop the hill? We've seen what that can do to a vehicle. Even if the entire thing does not explode, surely the shot would cripple it and leave our heroes no escape from the
faster, more powerful, and more intelligent
TX. In addition, her position does not allow the T-850 to see her and attempt evasive maneuvers.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
Shit. Shit!
Are you alright?
No.
Sensing my annoyance with the refusal ever to adequately use such a powerful weapon, the writers elected to remove it from the rest of the movie by way of the TX sustaining damage from the collision that dislodges her from the hearse. A machine that can take on any human form and control other machines does not have nanobots to repair this. Also, the cannon gets damaged when it is not deployed. Whatever. This is the TX at the height of her hunting prowess, and she is not stellar.
See? It's open spawn. You can kill me. But you're noob.
A non-combat example is also insightful. The antagonist interrogating someone in order to find John Connor. The T-1000 here inflicts immense agony on Sarah and states his demand clearly, using both pain and the threat of death. The TX first tosses Kate across a parking lot, then stands on her throat. Not only is this less painful than what the T-1000 did, and runs the risk of Kate getting knocked unconscious by banging her head on the pavement, but this exact method prevents the interrogatee from divulging the information. When Sarah twice defies the T-1000, it reinforces her courage to the audience. When Kate gasps, splutters, and writhes, we gain nothing. Yes, she is in a dangerous spot, but maybe she is trying to spill her guts. A few moments later, she reveals John's location to a large man wielding a shotgun who manhandles her into the back of a truck in exchange for a promise of her release. We have no idea whether Kate would have ratted John out to the TX because the TX would not allow her to speak.
More intelligent.
Here's an idea. The TX rips the door off its hinges, showing off her immense strength, and grabs Kate's wrist in one hand and threatens to start breaking fingers if she does not talk. Kate is still in the cab, futilely attempting to get out of the TX's grasp. The T-850 in his truck comes barreling in. The TX releases Kate to confront this. We get a side shot in which the TX gets hit as Kate lurches back into the cab, screaming in fright. She peeks her head out in terror at the explosion, and the rest of the scene plays out as it was. The TX's interrogation technique would be much better. The T-850 no longer drives a truck over Kate, potentially killing her. We can allow Kate, frightened as she is, to show some of her mettle by refusing to give John up to this psycho. Instead, the
brilliant
TX demands information while making it impossible for the victim to comply. These examples of the TX undermining her credibility as a villainess through decision-making are compounded by the portrayal of the character. Contrast the almost dispassionate T-1000 here with the shocked TX in response to the imminent crashes of their respective vehicles. The T-1000's body language here conveys inconvenience. The TX's exudes frustration. Why this head tilt here? What purpose does that serve? Is this the Terminator equivalent of precipitating a trial of strength? Finally, what the hell is this face? She is reacting to the discovery of John Connor's fresh blood. Leaving aside the question of whether the TX will lick any blood she finds, why this face? Is she getting aroused by John's blood? Why?
I don't understand. What do you want? You're just a machine.
You are not a mech. You do not know what it is like.
What's it like to stand around revving your actuators while the more advanced units complete the mission? No thanks.
And it was just a sheer little bit of brilliant acting on her part.
Brilliant.
One must be very selective of what human traits one gives to a Terminator. One of the things the fans of the first film took issue with was the shift from Arnold being a monstrous force to a protector, ultimately a father figure to John who makes a noble sacrifice. The human traits the T-800 acquired were the result of a learning computer that allows him to understand humans better. The same may apply to the T-1000. He manages to interact with people much more seamlessly than his predecessor. He also shows a greater emotional range, but is still a very cool customer. This is the first time we see a Terminator display something approaching ecstasy. What does that mean? Does she get lonely on her mission? Could the TX be tricked into failing her assignment if we give her more of John's blood? Perhaps a milkshake made out of it? Would she keep drinking it the same way those rats compulsively push the button that activates the electrodes that stimulate the pleasure centers of their brains? What the hell is going on here?
Cyborgs don't feel pain.
Apparently this one feels pleasure, Kyle. As a side note, while it makes complete sense for Skynet to produce Terminators that can pass for human, wouldn't it be extremely reticent to make its servants actually akin to humans?
Then saw all people as a threat, not just the ones on the other side.
Skynet, of all entities, should be quite aware of the danger servants might pose to the Creator.
Doesn't want you to do too much thinking, huh?
No.
So Skynet does not want 800 series Terminators thinking, but will create a far more powerful one that gets cyborgasms. I posited earlier that a credible antagonist is key to a good Terminator movie. An antagonist does not need to be a 5 steps ahead tactical mastermind to be effective. Solid decision-making combined with ability is enough. Throw on the spice of a good portrayal and presto. The writers gave the TX too much in the ability department, thus handicapping her smarts to ensure that she does not kill our heroes. Not only is she
faster, more powerful, and more intelligent,
but she is also a shapeshifter and has access to much more information than her predecessors. The TX does not enjoy the excuse of arrogance that an organic character of immense power might have to explain her failures.
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity, or remorse, or fear, and it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
The Terminator franchise built itself on great villains. Here we have a powerful, yet dim-witted, and ineffective one. Incidentally, why does the TX make feral animal noises at this point? It makes me respect the silent dignity of this puppet even more. You thought I was going to forget about the TX licking random blood, didn't you? I do not have much to say beyond the following. How very unfortunate that the one thing left on the floor for the TX to find has John's DNA on it. How very odd that the TX would lick the blood when she would have not only no reason to think it belongs to her primary target, but every reason to assume it is animal blood given its location. Couldn't just have her find something in John's bag that would identify him. Nope. Had to be the blood he left on the floor so conveniently. Good job, movie. Back to the story. We have a brief reprieve, during which we continue the annihilation of the T-850's credibility. He fills a basket with various items. When the gas station attendant demands that he pay for the merchandise, he responds thusly.
Talk to the hand. Fuck you, asshole. I insist. Talk to the hand.
He then allows the attendant, already upset about being ripped off, to see Kate futilely attempt to escape. Naturally, the attendant phones the police immediately. Now, I grant that given when this occurs, the authorities are not going to be around much longer. That said, until Judgment Day wipes out the police, our heroes should take reasonable precautions to avoid law enforcement entanglements. Not only because of what the police might do, but the TX could very well find them again. The T-850 is the decision maker here, so he bears the criticism for this fiasco. Let's operate on the assumption that our heroes must obtain food and water at this particular gas station. Since there is no possibility of paying with a credit card, the T-850 would need cash to make the purchase. Given that the T-850 obtained his attire from a stripper, it is logical that there would be no cash in the clothing. What stripper would cast off his wallet in the course of his act? It is also perfectly plausible that the T-850 would not find money in either the truck he stole or in the vet truck. Does John have no cash? It is possible that he keeps his money in his bag from earlier. That was left behind at the clinic. It is also unreasonable to open the truck up and shake Kate down for money. Since it is plausible that our heroes cannot actually pay for the goods, force or guile must be employed. The most obvious move is for the T-850 to go in, knock out the attendant, disable the phone, and obtain the supplies. Another option is to overpower and tie up the clerk. If we want to maximize guile and minimize force, have the T-850 draw the attention of the attendant. He could pretend to have lost something, a wallet say, in the back of the store, or tell the attendant that the toilet in the bathroom is backed up. Meanwhile, John could quickly gather the necessary items and be gone before the clerk is any the wiser.
Easy. This is a good idea. There's no risk in this. There is zero risk in this. Zero risk in this.
There is also no good reason to open the back of the vehicle in the parking lot. While the attendant will probably report the robbery immediately, the difference in the responses the authorities make to shoplifting versus kidnapping is substantial. It seems the T-850's purpose in opening the back door is to allow John to get in the back with Kate so they can begin bonding. From the story standpoint, this allows the police to learn of our hero's whereabouts and the TX to come back into the picture. The T-850 could easily get John in the back by driving a mile from the station, thus leading to a report of shoplifting instead of kidnapping, stopping, letting John in the back, and proceeding. It is not as though the T-850 is somehow unaware of the implications of his choices. He eyes the attendant as our heroes are about to leave. Thus, not only did the police learn of their whereabouts because none of my 3 options for obtaining food and water was followed, but also they will come in force and the TX is much likelier to find them.
For a brain your size, you're not really acting very smart.
I do not blame the writers for wanting to bring about another confrontation with the TX. Kate still needs some convincing about the nature of the events around her, and this is one of the ways to solve that dilemma. Nor would another action scene be out of place in the film in terms of pacing. After that, we could get the extended reprieve from the film's Terminator that the last 2 movies gave us. These events should come about in a way that does not undermine the T-850's decision-making skills, while enhancing the hunting prowess of the TX if possible. I shall discuss those in a bit, but let's proceed with the film first. We get our second conversation between John and Kate at this point. The gist of it is that she is upset at being kidnapped and he is not terribly interested in convincing her about the reality of her situation. I appreciate that the writers give John enough sense to realize that simply insisting that
the way things are is the way things are
will not be enough. Moments like these make you think, yeah, this movie might get it turned around. Then a character will say something that does not make sense.
I have a fiancé. He's gonna be looking for me.
I think your Air Force General father might be more relevant than this guy. For all Kate knows, he's mobilizing air assets to search for a runaway pet truck and prepared to use all force necessary to save her. It seems he never learns that his daughter is missing due to the virus messing with phones, but she has no way of knowing that. As smart as Kate has shown herself to be, this is a very silly thing to say. Anyway, the other thing we get from this scene is John realizing that they smooched in junior high. Riveting. Next, we learn that the TX has traveled to Scott's apartment. No doubt she realizes that the authorities will report information to Scott on Kate's disappearance and possible whereabouts. Not a bad move by the TX, even if she gives up hunting John's future lieutenants for the time being. The question that comes to mind is why the TX enters in her usual guise. Assuming she operates the way the T-1000 did.
This thing can imitate anything it touches.
Anything it samples by physical contact.
What's stopping her from coming in as Kate? She definitely made physical contact with her. This could keep any occupant who knows Kate from immediately panicking. I take it for granted that Scott is a dead man regardless, and his moment of fright makes no difference in the end. It's a bit of a shame from a visual standpoint. The door opening, Scott, half waking, saying, "Kate, is that you?" "Yes, honey." How did it go?" As she approaches the bed. "Fine. Just fine." Then she breaks his neck and starts searching the place for information. This one is not that egregious, and there is a narrative reason to avoid doing things my way in this case. I shall bring that up when we get there. Immediately thereafter, detectives Not Gonna Make It and Bow to Die show up. They explain where Kate was last seen, leading to this line.
"I'll help you find her."
First of all, what choice do you have? You are the fiancé of a kidnapped woman. You're coming with these gentlemen now. Second, why this line and that delivery? The actor has a creepy smirk and says the line in a sinister way. Why not say, with a worried expression, "Is there anything I can do to help, officer?" Show off that the TX can mimic human behavior even better than the T-1000 did. A missed opportunity. Moving on, our heroes arrive at a cemetery, where we shall get some exposition and learn why the T-850 brought John and Kate here. First, let's go back to the desirability of an action sequence and the return of the TX. The writers undermine the T-850 severely at the gas station in order to make this happen. How about this? Right after the crane chase sequence earlier, we cut to police HQ. As information comes in about what happened, a description of one of the combatants catches the attention of a lieutenant. Burly white male in black leather jacket, sunglasses, firing a shotgun while riding a motorcycle, etc. Sure enough, this sounds exactly like the man behind the massacre at an LA police precinct over 2 decades ago, who resurfaced about 13 years later before vanishing into the ether once more. His infamy in the police profession, especially in the Los Angeles area, is immense. So much so that the lieutenant immediately informs his superior that cop killer McGee has returned. The commander orders out an APB and vows to finish the vile son of a bitch once and for all. You could give the commander some history. Maybe he was first on the scene after the shootout in the original film. Or his brother was one of the victims. Thus, when our heroes bust into the cemetery, they tip off the police as to their exact whereabouts, leading the cops to show up in force. The TX learns of their location from the detectives and heads that way for the confrontation. Given this setup, the T-850 could have simply paid for the supplies at the gas station with money that John had on him, and thus avoided having to act foolishly. We get what the writers wanted, minus the talk to the hand bit. This is not that difficult, movie. Soon after entering the mausoleum, we learn what happened to Sarah Connor.
"You were good, son, real good. Maybe even the best."
The T-850 promptly reveals that sentimentality is not his reason for bringing the humans here.
Sarah Connor was cremated in Mexico. Her friends scattered her ashes in the sea. They stored these weapons in accordance with her will.
John has a reverie about his mother, which is fine. It provides a chance for Kate to be sympathetic towards him for the first time. This is an example of the writers having to make do with the real world. Linda Hamilton declined to reprise her role for this film. As such, they give Sarah the gift of having lived past when the world was supposed to have ended. Only for it to end several years afterwards because...
Judgment Day is inevitable.
With John reminiscing and the T-850 doing an inventory, Kate seizes a chance at escape. She grabs a pistol and brandishes it at the T-850. She fires after he takes a couple of steps forward. He is unfazed, naturally, spitting the round out and saying,
"Don't do that."
Kate is astonished by this, saying,
Oh my God.
This realization is cut short by the arrival of the SWAT team. Kate shows once more that she thinks well on her feet, successfully making a break for it. Apparently, John is so disillusioned at being reminded that his long-dead mother is still long dead, that he bids the T-850 leave him, that he is nothing special and wants to be left alone. Considering the misery Sarah and John have been subjected to in order to prevent them from doing deeds they had no plans to commit, it is understandable that it could eventually become too much. To say, screw it, I'm done with this. There's something to explore there, but things take a turn before we can. The T-850 says, "You're right. You're not the one I want. I am wasting my time." John replies,
"Fuck you! You fucking machine!"
Now, I cannot recall what I thought when I first saw this. I think those who are invested in the story would say this is a surprising moment, the Protector turning on John. Anyhow, the tone for this throat lift and exchange is a tense one. Let's see how it is resolved.
Better.
you with me?
Anger is more useful than despair.
What?
Basic psychology is among my subroutines.
Well, I cannot deny that it makes sense for the T-850 to get John's head back in the game as soon as possible. The humor in this moment is not terribly executed. Indeed, it is some of the best this film has to offer, which is not saying much, I grant, but it's not bad. However, now is the time to take a look at the T-850. The T-850 is involved in many jokes and gags in this film, whether as the instigator or the butt. We have already had the two talk to the hand incidents. There were those abominations he briefly wore. He crushed them underfoot, but much damage had been done. We have these moments that are meant to be funny.
I'll drive.
You've got to be shitting me.
No, I am not shitting you. We need a new vehicle.
I'm a human being. I'm not some goddamn robot.
Cybernetic organism.
Whatever.
Regardless of whether these amuse you, what cannot be denied is that this is very different in tone from the previous two films. I mentioned earlier that the softening of the T-800 from a relentless killing machine to John's ally did not sit well with some fans. The T-850 is even softer, more kid-friendly, and less intimidating than his predecessor. Here is a montage from the first film.
You can't do that.
Wrong.
Sarah Louise Connor.
I love you too, sweetheart.
Now let's look at Terminator 2. Finally, here is one from this movie.
Except you're supposed to go.
Get off. Get out.
I have just shown you pretty much every violent act, shown or implied, committed by the Terminator against people who are not his target or counterpart. Contrast those latter two in particular. Terminator 2 shows that he can be the good guy and a killer robot from the future. Terminator 3 just makes him harmless. Look at how weak that door move on the bouncer is. Or listen to the wimpy bone-crushing sounds compared to the previous film. And those firefighters? Turns out getting them to jump off saved them all. Side note, it had been several years since I'd watched this film when I first thought about making this video. I thought it was PG-13. I had forgotten about John saying the F-word 3 times and some of the violence. Really, this movie looks and feels like something that should be PG-13. It's not to say that more violence or grit would have saved this movie, but I think some of each would have helped. One of the main reasons, perhaps the main reason, we go watch Terminator movies is that the title character is a cyborg badass with zero fucks to give. Whether as a villain or hero, there is something awe-inspiring about this guy. The implacability, the blunt manner of speaking, the ability to perform feats beyond the scope of human possibility. There are times in our lives when it may well be necessary to be somewhat, or even much like the Terminator, to take on a challenge headlong. Sometimes life's problems need to be terminated.
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop, ever, until you are dead.
This guy is not getting it done. Due to writing that makes him soft, uses him as the butt of jokes, and generally fails to make him dangerous or at least imposing. While appealing to a wider audience is a reasonable objective, was it worth trading the Terminator's formidability for the sake of laughs?
I thought it was important to use humor very early on to win the audience over. This scene, particularly when Arnold walks out and puts on those sort of Elton John glasses, it just gets a huge laugh everywhere. And that's the point that I think audiences decide, you know what, I'm going to give this movie a chance. It was a very, very conscious decision on our part to use humor.
No. I understand the box office incentive to bring Arnold back in a sequel, but if you do, you need to play to his strengths. So many of the gags in this movie come off as,
"Ha, look what we got Arnold to say or do, ha."
It is unwise to sacrifice one's strengths in order to give to one's weaknesses. Terminator 3 commits this mistake with its title character, the iconic figure central to the success of the first two films that made a third one possible. This is not a killer robot from the future. This is no Terminator. This is Gramps. Old, harmless, mildly amusing from time to time, but not cut out to be the title character of this series.
Why people don't like him? Because he's a stupid guy. That's why. Nobody understand him. He look like stupid, That's why nobody like him.
Meanwhile, the call comes in that Kate is safe. The TX is so grateful that she gives the detective a hand driving. One question, though. How does the TX operate the gas or brakes? I suppose some nanomachines to take control of the car are in order, but it did not appear that the TX was moving to inject those. Moving on, Kate meets Dr. Silberman, the only human character to appear in all three Terminator films to date. His return in Terminator 2 makes sense, in that he has built a large part of a successful psychological career out of Sarah's account of the future.
This is great stuff. I could make a career out of this guy.
Here he shows up because there is no good reason. Sure, he is a criminal psychologist who has worked with the police before, but the man is at a stage in his life when you'd think he would beg off doing jobs around SWAT operations. Even if we ignore that, his presence chalks another one up for the coincidence caravan.
Why the hell did you do that?
I find it interesting how Silberman gets treated here. He has not managed to accept the truth of what he saw 10 years ago. He then gets scared witless and flees. Why? This feels like something that is supposed to please the audience. The same way a duplicitous and annoying wrestling manager getting her comeuppance gets wild applause from the crowd.
2 for 1. 7-10 split. Bowling for dollars.
Is Silberman that much of a heel? In the first film, he struck me as a man doing his job. His conclusions about Reese's story were logical. Granted, we see Lieutenant Traxler is more inclined to believe Reese, thus making Silberman narrow-minded by comparison, but there is nothing malicious in that. In the sequel, he is an antagonist for the first half of the film, yet he still comes across as a professional. The two actions that could make him less sympathetic are telling Douglas, see that she takes her Thorazine, and denying Sarah transfer to a minimum security facility. The first depends on whether Silberman knows how violent Douglas and his partner are. It is ambiguous how aware he is of this. The second is a very reasonable decision.
Well, Sarah, here's the problem. I know how smart you are. And I think you're just telling me what I want to hear. I think if I put you in minimum security, you'll just try to escape again.
Also, she stabbed him with his pen a few weeks ago. It would be different if he kept Sarah locked up in order to further his career despite believing her story. That would make him a vile son of a bitch. We receive nothing to indicate this. In addition, he is the victim of multiple attacks by Sarah, 2 of which we see in the course of the film. Thus, bringing Silberman back just to humiliate and terrify him seems mean-spirited more than anything. To add insult to injury, it's Judgment Day. Not only has he just had his world turned upside down again, but that world is about to explode too. I think this is relevant because Silberman and his assessment of the accounts of the future were important elements of the writing in the first 2 films. He is a rational man who, when presented with the truth but no evidence, comes to a completely rational conclusion, that the individuals in question are unbalanced and delusional. People such as Silberman are the reason Sarah cannot simply spread the word far and wide. She will not be believed because, lacking proof, she does seem crazy. The structure of the story allows this dilemma to occur without contrivance. Terminator 3 retroactively shows Silberman refusing to believe his eyes. While I do not doubt that people are capable of this, it undermines the man, casting doubt on his reasoning in the previous film. Was Sarah simply very unlucky to be stuck with an exceptionally obdurate psychologist unwilling to face a new reality? There is no need for that. Her own son did not believe her.
No, she's a complete psycho. That's why she's up at Pescadero. It's a mental institute, okay?
If we need a cool-down scene for Kate with a psychologist, I would have had a new one show up. The shrink could tell her that she just escaped from cop killer McGee. He killed so many cops that a woman became convinced that he was a robot from the future, if you can believe that. Kate could get unnerved by this as he goes on. Near the end of it, she could ask what happened to the woman. He could turn to her and say, "She died 7 years ago. Her name was Connor." We would avoid another trip on the coincidence carousel. Silberman need not be in denial, and Kate comes one step closer to believing the truth.
I think we need to move Lonzo.
That ain't no problem.
Huh?
According to the director's commentary, Silberman's cameo was for the sake of humor. Mostow refers to this choice as a running gag. If it is not already clear, I take issue with this film sacrificing its characters for laughs. At any rate, the reverie is shattered not long after.
Drop your weapon! And the coffin!
Is there a particular reason the officer needs to say that second part? I have a hard time imagining a real SWAT officer being so specific in such a situation. It's played for another laugh. Maybe it got one. From someone, someplace. The police open fire upon Gramps' non-compliance. We soon realize that the coffin was not only full of weaponry, but bulletproof. I skipped talking about it, but the notion that Sarah left a small arsenal inside a bulletproof coffin is a concept I am undecided on. On the one hand, John is unaware of it. Gramps states that it was in her will, that her friends knew what was in it. Perhaps John dropping off the grid prevented them from telling him? The bulletproof aspect is a bit much. I do not know where one would go to get such a coffin made, nor why exactly Sarah would anticipate that feature being necessary. On the other hand, it does dovetail with this line.
One thing about my mom. She always plans ahead.
Meshing with the canon is important. Sarah was understandably paranoid about the future. While this is absurdly convenient, it is at least consistent with Sarah's character. While on the topic of convenience, however, I must say that it is most fortunate that John elected to drop off the grid and stay around Los Angeles. This movie might have worked out differently had he, moved to Montana or something. Before we leave this battle, I want to bring up a non-writing problem I have with this film. The lighting. The issue is present throughout most of Terminator 3. The majority of the important scenes in this film have horrific lighting. The reason is that the filmmakers used the sun.
Sun?
In the last 2 movies, all of the action scenes except the Galleria motorbike chase took place at night. Plenty of action scenes work fine in daytime, but contrasting the sunniness of Terminator 3 with the darkness of its predecessors is not kind to the former. I have a theory that the night scenes in the first 2 Terminator movies help link the present to the future, which is always dark. Since this movie takes place in under 24 hours and starts at night, our opportunities for that glorious dim lighting are limited. Moving on. Gramps deposits the coffin in the back of a hearse. As he takes the wheel, John immediately emerges, sitting up and exposing himself to any gunfire that might penetrate the sides of the vehicle. I rather doubt that Sarah managed to have a bulletproof hearse planted in this lot for several years, so John sitting up here is a dangerous move with a SWAT team pumping lead into the vehicle. The writers obviously want to get an important exchange between these 2 characters before bringing Kate back into the fold, which is understandable. One could also hardly blame John for wanting to escape a box against which he has heard gunfire impact for an extended time. However, John sitting up here at the very least should have drawn a "stay down" from Gramps. Remember the precautions Sarah took in Terminator 2? Covering John in bulletproof vests while inside a bulletproof vehicle in order to protect him from one adversary? The hearse is nowhere near as well armored, the enemy firepower is many times greater, but the coffin would keep John pretty much secure unless the police disable the hearse. Now that I mention that, it is at least very fortunate, if not downright silly, that the police fail to bring the hearse to a stop. Sure, they are in a state of disarray at the moment, but more than one of them should be firing as Gramps drives off. Anyway, I mentioned an important exchange between Gramps and John.
We must reacquire Captain Brewster.
What makes her so goddamn important?
She's your wife.
Important information for the audience, but can we deliver it without making Gramps careless? Sure. Gramps slides the coffin in the back, walks to the front, and begins hot wiring the hearse. We get a shot facing him so we can see the coffin lid come off in the back. We hear John's voice as he lays there and begins the exchange. When Gramps drops the wife line, John sits up, looking shocked. "What?" Gramps puts the pedal to the floor and John gets thrown back into the coffin as the duo speeds off to rescue John's future spouse. Bam. Problem solved.
Easy.
This is another minor issue, but let's take a look. A car pulls up a short distance from Kate. She sees her fiancé get out of the back. Naturally, she is overjoyed, so much so that she moves in slow motion. It appears that she is still looking directly at him as her face changes from elation to uncertainty. The next shot clearly establishes that the TX has not yet begun to transform. What tipped Kate off? My assumption would be the two corpses in the front seat of the car. However, she appears to be staring directly at the Scott simile. I suppose something about body language or the lack of a relieved yell of "Kate!" might have given her pause. Considering all she has been through so far today, her sixth sense must be of the most perceptive variety. Before anyone defends the decision to have the TX transform in front of Kate as being necessary to convince her once and for all that Terminators are real, I say bunk. The superhuman feats the TX is about to perform would have sufficed. However, just for insurance, we could have had Kate watch in the rearview mirror as Scott stands up, morphs, and gives chase as the TX. Indeed, why not have simply done the following? After Gramps spits out the round Kate fired into his mouth, have John say, "Show her." Gramps would glance at John, then stare Kate in the eye as he pulls his shirt up, revealing the metal skeleton underneath. This would mesh well with the scene earlier. John is acutely aware that Gramps has carved a large amount of flesh from his torso, while Kate had no view of this development. She would still be completely reasonable to run away at the first opportunity, thus causing no trouble for the sequence of events and proving to her that machines of the future can imitate humans. A question. How does Gramps know what direction Kate is heading? Last we saw her, she was running away from the shooting, and there is no indication that Gramps saw her flight. Chalk it up to luck, I guess. John gives a quick nod to the last two films.
You want to live? Come on!
It's a sensible thing to say, though the delivery could have been more urgent. Anyway, the writers show some intelligence by not having John quote Reese in the T-800 word for word. It would make little sense for the man who is not driving to say, "Come with me." With the TX in hot pursuit, Kate learns the fate of her fiancé.
Your fiancé is dead.
No doubt we could watch her break down over this, but there is a Terminator afoot. The writers use a winding hillside road to allow the TX to make up the lost ground. Well done on that. Otherwise, the TX might have shown off the ability to run at such a high speed to catch up that we would be left wondering how anything could ever escape her, which would make her repeated failures all the more glaring. Kate sells the danger well. Thankfully, there is a semi nearby. This action scene is the strongest in the movie. The TX looks more competent in hunting the humans than at any other point, though that bar is so low that Satan may be enjoying a drink there right now. John gamely buys time with AK-47 fire on the TX, and Gramps proves his mettle by cleverly dislodging the assailant. Hell, I'd even accept Gramps' line afterwards.
We need a new vehicle.
I think Xenadrin might have sponsored this film. As mentioned earlier, the writers get rid of the TX's plasma cannon. Let's see. One foolishly slow Terminator hit, a missed shot on John Connor due to choosing a slow-moving vehicle, destroyed a fire engine after Gramps had already boarded the crane, attempted to kill Kate but did not get it out in time. Not only does she fail to use this powerful weapon well, but the most successful shot from the plasma cannon has serious consequences for her. Also, I want to contrast a couple of collisions. The Terminator got hit square in the face by a semi. For some reason, the driver did not see him and only braked after impact. Anyway, the Terminator suffered damage from this, but the area directly impacted, the head, still functions. We see a bit of glitchiness from his POV as he prepares to resume the hunt. The TX doinks off the side of the semi and thereby puts her plasma cannon out of commission. I realize that the CPU is the most heavily protected component of a Terminator, but considering how much of a demigoddess the TX is in comparison to her peers, this is a massive stretch. And before anyone says, well, perhaps the cannon became inoperable due to the T-850 hitting her with the RPG earlier, that would explain why she did not use it during the chase. First, why does she appear to have full use of her right arm through the rest of the film? Second, are you really suggesting that she is so badly designed that an obsolete weapon could strike such a powerful blow? Third, her POV shot indicates damage around the wrist, not the shoulder. So, no, doinking off the truck did it. The TX selects a flamethrower as her new go-to weapon. A pity there has not been an opportunity to use close-range, fire-spewing ordnance on those highly flammable human targets.
What a shame.
Also, I suppose this truck driver here running off is supposed to be humorous? It did nothing for me. Maybe he saw the first two movies and learned that truckers fare ill around Terminators. I am going to lay out an idea, then talk about a choice the writers had. We do not see the TX infiltrate Scott's apartment at all. Instead, we go there to find the detectives knocking on the door, a sleepy Scott answering, then getting worried and even distraught at the news. Later, when Kate makes it into police custody, the cops say that her fiancé is on the way in order to reassure her. Not long after, we learn from Gramps about John and Kate's future union. As far as the audience knows, John and Scott are about to have a rather awkward meeting. When the detectives, who are very much alive and willing to bring Scott directly to Kate, show up, Scott gets out and is revealed as the TX by virtue of taking the RPG from Gramps. If played right, the film could have pulled a slick surprise on us. After all, if Scott really did show up, that might alter Kate's and John's future substantially. At the same time, once the TX is revealed, the audience would have no trouble accepting the premise that she found Scott, killed him, and imitated him. After all, she has access to people's addresses via the internet, and we know that she is a shapeshifter. Ah, you say, but how would the T-850 know to shoot at Scott? Surely we do not operate on the assumption that he would blow the real Scott away to allow John and Kate to get together. Well, something that is never specified in either Terminator 2 or Terminator 3 is whether the shapeshifting abilities of the T-1000 and TX can fool a Terminator. Reese mentions that the HKs in the future have infrared vision. Thus, it would not be strange for Gramps to have the same capability. Kate could ask Gramps how he knew Scott was not Scott. He could reply that, while searching the cemetery for her, he spotted a vehicle in which one of the occupants had an impossibly low body temperature. He reasoned that the TX was being taken to Kate, and thus he tailed the car so he could intervene to save her. This then was the choice facing the writers. One option is to do what they did. Show that the TX has impersonated Scott and try to build suspense. Another option, as I have outlined, is to surprise the audience by misdirecting them into thinking John and Scott are about to meet before revealing the TX. The problem with the first option is that the viewer has little to no doubt that Kate will survive the encounter. This is in contrast with, say, Hitchcock or Coen Brothers movies. In those, the protagonists and other main characters frequently perish. Here, our main characters are shod in plot armor, meaning we do not have suspense, merely a wait to see how they escape. Instead, with a bit of planning, we could give the audience a logical jolt. The writers chose the suspense option, even though they cannot create it given what the audience knows. I leave it to you whether they decided wisely.
Nope.
Our heroes find an unoccupied RV, and the writers indulge in another bit of humor. This one is fine. It doesn't undermine Gramps and underscores how badly shot up the hearse is. Most fortunate that there is no one around to contest our heroes taking possession of the RV. Next, we get a chance for Kate to show how broken up she is about the worst day of her life.
We gotta keep moving.
She killed Scott because of me.
John then shows why he is not a grief counselor.
Look, I know this won't help, but sometimes things happen we just can't change. It's not your fault.
The woman is grieving, man. What you say is 100% accurate. That does not matter. Except for the fact that you and your burly friend kidnapped her, you might offer to comfort her a little. In any event, give her some time alone. After John's turn at grief counseling, Gramps makes us wonder why he isn't working as a marriage counselor.
Sure about this? About her and me, I mean.
Your confusion is not rational. She's a healthy female of breeding age.
Something about Arnold Schwarzenegger saying that line makes me wonder whether he says that to friends at parties when encouraging them to go hit on attractive women.
She's a healthy female of breeding age.
Do it! Do it!
The humor itself is not terrible. However, at the moment, Kate is going through what should be a breakdown. Now would be a good time for some introspection. Maybe John starts asking Gramps about plans, helps check the weaponry, and so on. I said the door falling off was fine. It was much more organic than Gramps' line, and crucially occurs before we see Kate shedding tears. It's fine for John to ask the question he did, but why not have Gramps respond, yes. Give Kate some time to mourn and let the tone of the scene be consistent. John asks Gramps the following question.
This Terminatrix, how many others does she have on her hit list?
Anderson Elizabeth, Anderson William, Barrera Jose.
It is interesting that he would have these exact details. Granted, Kyle Reese knew that the Terminator was after Sarah, and the T-800 knew that T-1000 was after John. Those could be logically deduced based on when each enemy Terminator was sent if we begin with the supposition that John Connor's future leadership is utterly decisive in securing victory over the machines. However, knowledge of all 24 of the TX's targets is not something that mere deduction could derive. That information must have come from the source, namely Skynet's memory. This implies that Skynet was unable to purge its memory of useful information about the android assassin's missions. When I watched the first two films, I always assumed that the time displacement equipment would have left some record of when the Terminators were sent back. Perhaps the amount of energy used to transport is related to how far in the past the object is sent? Anyways, Gramps knowing the TX's hit list immediately brings up the following question. Do the humans also know precisely where and at what moment the TX shall arrive? If so, I have a follow-up question.
He cannot afford to miss these rolls. 15 seconds left. Oh, what? Brutal.
So Rapper will go through the teleporter. He doesn't find him. Comes through here and finds Cooler. Goes to Chase. And Rapper kills him with a telefrag, which is when he comes out the teleporter and spawns inside his opponent, basically, and that kills him.
I mean, I was evil. Oh, he was on. Okay, now got the red armor, but he was on 59 HP. Yeah?
Oh, what are you? What?
Are you serious?
No, that was weird. Okay, Claws put. Oh no!
How did you fall into the? He knew that. Now he realizes he should just wait here. Doing anything else is so dangerous. Oh, I know he wants to go for that mega. He's gonna try it. No! He gets telefragged! Oh my god!
If the humans of the future know where and when the TX arrives, why not telefrag her? You heard Too Good give a brief explanation of telefragging. Essentially, the game cannot handle two players occupying the same space in the map. Thus, if someone stands on a respawn point or teleporter exit, and another player arrives, the first player instantly dies. As we have seen in this film and the last one, the time displacement field obliterates anything around the destination to prevent what is sent back being fused to or damaged by something in the present. If the humans know the precise location and time of the TX's arrival, why not telefrag her? All they would need to do is send something back 2 seconds after the TX arrives in the exact same spot. It seems to me that the TX would be immediately annihilated while dramatically standing up. It need not be a human. Send an animal back in time, kill the TX with a squirrel or something. This is reminiscent of the TX's problem, i.e. having all the tools to achieve victory but failing to use them. The humans seem to have all the information they need to thwart any time-traveling Terminator with ease, but do not do so. Back to the hit list.
Barrera Jose, Brewster Robert.
My father?
What a coincidence. Of course, we in the audience knew long ago that Papa Brewster was in charge of Skynet. Until recently, we did not know that the daughter of the same man is going to be the wife of John Connor.
There's a high probability.
Bullshit. The probability is insanely low. The only explanation I can muster is that more than Judgment Day is inevitable. That it is fate that has caused all of this to occur.
It is your destiny.
Hell, we've had a line in that vein already.
Why? Why me?
You are John Connor.
Perhaps this film is ingeniously crafted and wrought with artistry beyond the scope of ordinary motion pictures. Or it's lazy and incompetent writing. You decide.
You choose, please.
Back to our heroes.
If you hadn't come back when I was a kid, if everything hadn't changed, she and I, we would have got together then. See, I would have met her father a long time ago. Don't you see?
I don't understand.
Neither does he, Kate.
Your father. This is all about your father. He's the key. He always was. Your father is the one who can shut Skynet down. He's the only one who ever could. We have to get to him before the TX does.
First off, that Dyson guy was pretty important. Second, what were you going to do? Try to talk Papa Brewster out of ever using Skynet while dating his daughter? Suppose you succeeded. Then some other military man would take the project over and Skynet would eventually be unleashed. It seems the only thing to be done is to destroy Skynet and or the means of its creation. A pity such an opportunity never arose.
Your father is the one who can shut Skynet down.
Papa Brewster is a 3-star. If a superior orders him to activate Skynet, it's over. Unless he has a surefire way to wipe out the AI, John is spouting nonsense. Also, this movie states that John and Kate last saw each other the day before the events of Terminator 2 began. Something tells me that young John would not have endeared himself well with career military man Papa Brewster. This is a kid who had a criminal record, no father, a mother in a mental asylum, a toilet mouth, and an enormous capacity to be a dick. Can't imagine how things would go if the would-be in-laws ever met each other.
Good job.
It is not stated whether Papa Brewster is on the TX's hit list because he has the power to delay or avert Skynet's ascension, or because of future work with the human resistance. Given his age and this information,
the Mojave area will sustain significant nuclear fallout. You will not survive.
It is unlikely he would have played a vital role after Judgment Day, assuming he even survives that. Therefore, he is on the hit list in order to ensure Skynet is activated. But why? He winds up activating Skynet. After realizing humanity got screwed, he has no ace up his sleeve. What we have is a reversal of the standard Terminator dynamic, i.e. Skynet's time traveler wants the status quo, and the humans want to change it. If anything, Papa Brewster should be receiving round-the-clock covert bodyguarding by the TX to make sure he activates Skynet. The writing falls into a pattern. Nonsense decisions, large quantities of luck, and a need to get to the next place to do the next thing impel our heroes and drag the plot along. Remember Gramps' gas station stupidity? We needed an action scene and the TX back in the fray. Kate runs off. Gramps luckily finds her right as the TX is about to seal the deal. Remember the coincidence cavalcade? Now we need to get Kate to persuade our aged android to take them to Papa Brewster. So let's put him on the hit list and thus in imminent peril despite this making anti-sense. Finally, John should be cynical regarding this adventure. He personally saw to the destruction of Cyberdyne and the technology that would have spawned Skynet, only for Skynet to rise anyway. He learns, in no uncertain terms, that he merely forestalled the day of reckoning. Yet here he is saying that they must avert the crisis. As I said early on, buying time can be a good move, but John is acting as though this harebrained mission is a categorical imperative, despite his past experience providing strong evidence that there is no stopping Judgment Day. Maybe he took what Gramps said to heart and realizes the best way to win Kate's affection is to save her father, or at least try to. Further lines are exchanged, the upshot of which is that Judgment Day is mere hours away.
You mean we go run and hide somewhere in a hole while the bombs fall?
It is your destiny.
Instead of that line, just say, yes. Or, no. In a bunker the Mexican military abandoned several years ago. I thought basic psychology was among your subroutines. John was having none of the destiny talk earlier. What makes you think it will work now? Regardless...
Fuck my destiny.
Right, let's talk about John Connor. I do not have as much to say about him as you might think. John being something of a screw-up makes sense given his history.
It messes with your head.
Yes, indeed. This movie tries to explore what knowing so much about one's future, particularly a terrible future foretold to make one legendary, does to a person. The trouble with John Connor is that he is a mythic character before we even see him.
But there was one man who taught us to fight, to storm the wire of the camps, to smash those metal motherfuckers into junk. He turned it around. He brought us back from the brink. His name is Connor. John Connor.
Adequately portraying that man is a tall order, not just in terms of the right actor, but getting the writing down, the situations, and so on. Let's not beat around the bush. John Connor is a salvific figure. It is no coincidence that he shares his initials with another man of the same description.
Agent Denton, at your service.
We do not see him at all in the original film, and the sequel gets away with it by showing him as a youngster. A youngster with plenty of guts and guile, who may one day become a great man. That works. We also see him briefly as the leader of humanity, surveying the battlefield. James Cameron originally wanted to show Connor and company discovering the time displacement equipment, sending Reese back, discovering a second Terminator had been sent, etc. He ultimately decided against this, apparently due to time and budget constraints. The film would have been bloated with those scenes, but mainly I'm glad that Connor's mystique was thereby preserved. Anyway, not only do the first two films establish John as one of the greatest heroes humanity has ever known, but his accomplishments get retroactively enlarged by Terminator 3 to even greater proportions. To wit, if Skynet develops the TX, how does humanity win in the end? The fact of Skynet having already developed the T-800 and T-1000 does not raise this question. They are infiltration units. Both are detected by dogs. Future weaponry is shown to be effective against 800 series platforms, while we may suppose the extreme heat given off by plasma would counter the T-1000. Even if that latter hypothesis were disproven, we have this.
So this other guy, he's a Terminator like you, right?
Not like me. A T-1000. Advanced prototype.
Advanced prototype. So, how many were there? Possibly as few as the one we see in the film. Even if we assume that Skynet created only one TX, she is radically more advanced than the 800 series. Surely there were models leading up to the TX. The point is that the more powerful and advanced Skynet servants are, the more magnificent John Connor must be to lead humanity to victory. It gets to the point at which one wonders, how the hell does humanity overcome this? The answer is disproportionately on Connor's shoulders. The humans say so, the enemy demonstrates it through its choices, a robot gets turned on at the thought of killing him. Not only that, but if we accept the idea that Judgment Day is fated to occur, then is mankind's comeback under Connor's leadership fate also? If so, does that not cheapen his future greatness?
Yes.
Let's bring in a great storyteller.
I mean, to give you a kind of I'll give you a literary example, okay? Famously in the book The Iliad, which is the Greek story by Homer of the Trojan War. And it's the Greeks against the Trojans, and they're sieging Troy. And one of the core storylines within this overarching story is of the hero of Troy is Prince Hector. And he's a great warrior. And he's a man who kind of has a lot of courage for his family, and he wants to protect people. And he's the kind of guy who just wants to do what's right. And he's quite an egalitarian sort of guy. And he represents like the best of Troy. And then on the other side, you have Achilles, who's literally like a demigod in the sense of like that's where he's spawned from, and his mother dipped him into this pool everywhere except his ankles, and he's kind of invulnerable to a degree, and he has the favor of the gods on his side, like I think it's Athena is the one who always helps him out. And so these two guys, who are both in different ways blessed by the gods, are the two sort of mightiest men of their eras. These are the two greatest men of their eras, but they're on opposite sides of a war. And eventually, through the way the story works out, they end up having to battle each other. And they have this battle, and in this battle, Achilles kills Hector. Remember what I just said there? Hector can't know this in the story, but Achilles actually, to a degree, unless you know his weak spot, can't be killed, essentially. And he has the gods on his side. So he's going to win this battle no matter what. And actually, the way the story goes, one of the gods kind of does help out, and he trips up Hector. In this particular sense, Hector can't do anything here. He could be the second greatest person ever in history and second best warrior in the whole world, but he's going to lose this battle. That's kind of how I'd pit it when you get into a final where you're in it versus a god.
In this analogy, John is Achilles, inasmuch as his destiny ensures he will succeed in bringing down the machines. We don't blame Hector for losing the fight because he cannot win. We do not laud Achilles for winning because he cannot lose. Does fate govern everything, or just the matters that allow more movie sequels to happen? This film has simultaneously made John Connor both more amazing and lamer. Impressive. Incidentally, Thorin here is a fantastic fellow when it comes to a wide range of topics. He is best known for his work in professional gaming, to the extent of being esports, but he also covers many other topics on his main channel and his side one. Back to Terminator 3. All this is to say that Nick Stahl here has a highly unenviable task. The script is not kind to him, as he is often the butt of comedy and gets very little opportunity to show his mettle. This moment is one. We get another later on. Contrast that with Terminator 2.
I'm gonna go get my mom, and I order you to help me. If I'm ever supposed to be this great military leader, maybe you should start listening to my leadership ideas once in a while.
This is tactically dangerous.
Drive faster. All right, 7, 2, 5, 6. Yes! Easy money. We got Skynet by the balls now, don't we? Come on, let's book.
We get to see the potential of John to become a great fighter and leader. He has a gentler side, but that comes up at appropriate times, such as here.
Mom and him are only together for one night. She still loves him, I guess. I see her crying sometimes. She denies it totally, of course, like she got something stuck in her eye.
In this movie, we see very brief glimpses of John's mettle, even though he is much closer to the time when his leadership and combat skills are necessary. I think it fair to say that the John we see in this film, even at the end, is farther from this guy than the John of the previous film.
Fuck my destiny.
John. You cannot self-terminate.
Does your basic psychology subroutine not contain any information on suicide? Gramps loses credibility with this line. Shocking development.
I lied.
Even if we grant that Gramps does not actually believe this, how is this persuasive?
I can do whatever the hell I want. I'm a human being. I'm not some goddamn robot.
While this is anticlimactic, since we as an audience know there is zero chance the film's protagonist kills himself, it is good that John challenges the fate angle by asserting his ability to make decisions. This is an important character moment.
Cybernetic organism.
Promptly lightened with humor. Whether out of pedantry or the killing machine actually taking offense at being called a goddamn robot, this line would have been better omitted.
Go to her father. We get him to shut Skynet down. Stop this shit from ever happening. Or so much for the great John Connor. Because your future, my destiny, I don't want any part of it. I never did.
No one wants the future John has in store. After Gramps states he believes John is bluffing, Kate resolves the situation by telling Gramps that he must help them rescue her father. He assents, for no immediately apparent reason.
We can reach CIS in approximately 1 hour, depending on traffic conditions.
As our heroes travel to their destination, Kate delivers some exposition.
I can't get a line. The whole cell network's down.
How do you know the entire cell network is down? That's a mighty big claim. It's almost as though the writers need a way to get our meek machine to say this.
Skynet is assuming control over global communications in preparation for its attack.
If it was merely a case of the RV's phone being defective, that line would be illogical.
Brilliant.
So if this war is between people and machines, why are you on our side?
I don't believe I have to be loyal to one side or the other. I'm simply asking questions.
The Resistance captured me and reprogrammed my CPU. I was originally designed for assassination missions.
So you don't really care if this mission succeeds or not?
No.
If we get killed, does that mean anything to you?
No.
This touches Kate a bit.
Thank you for doing this.
Your gratitude is not required. I'm programmed to follow your commands.
This explains why Gramps relented moments earlier, along with this exchange.
Have you sustained injury?
Drop dead, you asshole!
I'm unable to comply.
But it does open up a question. Under what circumstances does this not apply?
Please, please, please! You have to let me go!
Kate tells him to let her go early on, but he does not. Presumably his programming ignores commands that would put her in danger. If this is the case, then should he not have remained steadfast about not going to rescue Papa Brewster? And before you say, yes, but John had a gun to his head. Gramps clearly reverses course at Kate's behest, not due to John's threat.
Please do it! He says you have to save my father!
In Terminator 2, John orders the T-800 to accompany him first to Pescadero and later to Dyson's home. In both cases, the T-800 warns about possible interception by the T-1000.
Negative. The T-1000's highest probability for success now will be to copy Sarah Connor and to wait for you to make contact with her.
The T-1000 has the same files that I do. It knows what I know. It might anticipate this move.
Each case involves risk. However, based on what Gramps said earlier,
the Mojave area will sustain significant nuclear fallout. You will not survive.
This is a suicide mission. If he must follow her orders regardless of her safety, why did he not let her go earlier when she demanded it? Perhaps he judged her to be hysterical, and therefore was not required to heed her under such circumstances? A Terminator should be consistent when it comes to following orders, and this one is not.
Her commands.
It was Catherine Brewster who had me reactivated and sent through the time displacement field.
So future Kate, second in command to the great John Connor, entrusts her past self with the power to command Gramps, but does not grant John Connor the same authority. Even though John has extensive knowledge and experience with Terminators and would grasp the situation much faster than Kate. Future John Connor saw fit to give his much younger self the power to give orders to the T-800, yet future Kate does not trust adult John Connor with the same authority in this situation? Perhaps this is the result of a marital spat across time. Talk about a situation into which you really would not want Spite to enter. Incidentally, in case someone points out that Gramps showing up at the clinic is plausible because future Kate could tell him where she would be early on Judgment Day, sure, though that means he was sent from a loop in which the first 22 minutes of the movie played out the same, minus the arrival of the Terminators, and John and Kate stayed together. Neither one would have any way to know that today is Judgment Day without interference from the future. If we forgive the contrivance of our amiable android showing up in the nick of time, we must wonder how the hell John and Kate bonded without the events of this film to keep them together for a good while. But I am getting ahead of myself. Fittingly, for a video about a Terminator movie, we need to go back in time. Remember how the TX killed the woman with the sick cat? The purpose of this action is to alert Kate and John to danger without having the TX see them immediately. Let's examine this. As mentioned before, the writers made the TX come here despite available information leading elsewhere. She opts to break through the glass front door. This informs the woman with the sick cat that something is amiss. The TX shoots her, which alerts Kate and John to their imminent peril. Why did the TX break through the door? I assume she cannot pick the lock with a gadget or by using her liquid metal skin to form a key. If we grant the writers that, why not have her knock on the front door? There are vehicles outside and the lights are on. One might say, she's a Terminator. It's fitting that she uses brute force. Yeah, sure.
Sarah Connor?
Yes?
Are you the legal guardian of John Connor?
She could knock, have the woman with the sick cat come over, ask if she is Kate or if Kate is there. The problem is that this would lead to her succeeding in her mission. So she does something foolish instead. This move makes it a bit more reasonable that the TX does not follow the established procedure of
Jose Barrera?
Yeah, that's me.
Elizabeth and William Anderson?
I'm Bill, my sister's upstairs.
The woman with the sick cat, startled by the break-in, would conceivably be alarmed and would thus run away rather than stand fast and answer the question. This does not absolve the TX of being idiotic, but at least it serves its purpose of protecting our heroes less blatantly than most of the other instances of our villainous' lapses of judgment. However, the fact that she immediately shot a woman she thought to be Kate brings up the following question. Why does she go for the kill and not interrogate her about John Connor's whereabouts? But it is established that Skynet could not find John since he went off the grid, hence the future lieutenants being the targets. You even approved of this element. Yes, and I did. Of course the TX has no reason to think John is in the building. However, she must know that Kate is John's future wife, given that she and John are going to spend the next 28 years battling Skynet. If anyone could possibly give her information about where John is, Kate would be she. We saw how excited the TX was about getting on the trail of humanity's greatest hero. She should be trying to catch Kate and torture her for this knowledge. Either she knows something that the TX can use and perishes, or she knows nothing and perishes. This film would have us believe that the TX is so stupid that she would kill Kate on sight rather than asking her a single question about John's whereabouts. Hell, if John dropping off the grid, but conveniently staying around Los Angeles, kept Skynet from sending the TX after him, why not have the TX covertly shadow Kate until she meets John and then kill them both? Maybe Skynet realized how stupid the TX is and concluded that she would lose track of Kate after getting distracted licking random blood. Thus, it figured at best she could manage to kill fast food employees, partying teens, and veterinarians. Narratively, the decision to make Gramps obey Kate as long as it suits the plot gives us this scene, which is a plus, but it could just as easily have been achieved by the aforementioned risk overriding human orders clause I proposed. John could take out the pistol and say, "How's this for risk?" The scene would proceed as before, except now John convinces Gramps that if he does not agree, John will end it all. If not now, then the next time he has the chance.
That ain't no problem. Huh?
There is one other scene at the end where the writer's decision about following orders makes narrative sense. I'll talk about that when we get there. The fact that it serves some storytelling purposes at least means some mileage was obtained, so there's that. Moving on.
What exactly am I in this future of yours?
You're John Connor's spouse and second in command.
No,
The reactions are more subdued from Kate than I would like from a grieving woman told she is destined to marry a fuck-up.
What?
You're a mess.
Yeah, you're not exactly my type either.
But what about Kripke's basement, John?
So why didn't I send you back?
I'm not authorized to answer your question.
Why didn't he send you back?
He was dead.
And John learns he is mortal. Fate is cruel after all.
So how does it... No. Maybe I don't want to know.
A wise decision, John. Good.
Well, how does he die?
Why does Kate ask this question? I have no explanation for this outside of the writers needing Gramps to tell us.
John Connor was terminated on July 4th, 2032. I was selected for the emotional attachment he felt towards my model number due to his boyhood experiences. This aided in my infiltration.
What? What are you saying?
I killed you.
I already talked about how John forgetting about this earlier was inconceivable. Now we must believe that battle-hardened future John sees a Model 101 Terminator approaching him and greets him with open arms. That makes John sound stupid, to put it charitably. Not only this, but wouldn't he be heavily protected by capable and alert TechCom members? Surely they would have dogs around to detect any infiltrators. Did John plaster his command center with T2 posters, causing his subordinates to assume this guy is an ally and let him through? What the hell, writers? Gramps specifically says this.
This aided in my infiltration.
So it is not the case that these two met on the battlefield and John's hesitation at the sight of his old protector allowed Gramps to get the drop on him. That would have made some sense at least. This also puts the timeline into question. The humans only discovered the time displacement equipment after destroying Skynet.
Their defense grid was smashed. We'd won.
Is that when you captured the lab complex and found that, what is it called? The time displacement equipment?
That's right.
Both Reese and the T-800 are explicitly sent back by John Connor.
Connor sent me to intercept, and they blew the whole place.
35 years from now, you reprogrammed me to be your protector here, in this time.
However, Skynet would have sent the TX back at the same time as the original Terminator and the T-1000, or soon thereafter.
It had no choice. Their defense grid was smashed. We'd won.
Did John Connor send back his first two protectors and not realize a third would be needed? After which he perishes underwhelmingly at the hands of Gramps? How did the humans discover that the TX had gone back? What would have kept them from finding out when they learned of the other two assassins? Was it necessary for future Kate to send this exact machine back? Why not a different Model 101? I can find no logical reason for this. If she does decide to send this one back, why not remove the information about John Connor's fate from his memory? Such information might be counterproductive.
It messes with your head.
And she clearly programmed him not to reveal it to John, so it seems she thought of this. I suppose future Kate was concerned with keeping the audience interested. This reveal is contrived, pointless, and undermines both the characters and the timeline. It also establishes that the rest of John's life is destined to be spent fighting for a future he shall never himself enjoy, and now he knows it. Mankind's greatest hero. The warrior and leader so formidable that Skynet sent assassins back in time to erase his existence, has no hope of a life beyond the war. It is one thing for someone to brave great danger and accept narrow odds, but John has no odds. He will die having known nothing but war and suffering for the last 28 years of his life. For fuck's sake, Terminator 3. I mean, I don't need assurances that John gets to do the Winston Churchill Man of the Century tour and retire to write an account of the war against the machines. However, I would like to think his last years would be spent watching humanity reestablish civilization, or at least that there would be a chance of that. Next, we see that Papa Brewster is under increasing pressure to bring about Judgment Day. This scene is set up so that we get a look at an HK-inspired aerial unit. It concludes with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs ordering Papa Brewster to communicate. It's an innocuous scene, so let's keep moving.
None of this is gonna happen.
Judgment Day is inevitable.
Okay, we get to your dad, we get him to Pull the plug on Skynet, the bombs won't fall.
Judgment Day is inevitable.
You won't have to kill me someday. I'll never even exist.
Inevitable.
You and I, we can just go our separate ways.
Inevitable.
But let's back up a moment. John says, "Kay, we get to your dad." He just says this as though it's as simple as going to the grocery store. Papa Brewster is at CRS, a facility of the United States Air Force. There are 3 characters in this RV. Each one of them should know that one does not simply roll into an Air Force base. Remember when our heroes decided to go after Cyberdyne? One of the key reasons they could was that they had the cooperation of Dyson. He got them through the preliminary layers of security and made it possible to open the vault door. Here we have a middle-aged Austrian bodybuilder, a man with no identity, and a veterinarian in an RV carrying a wide array of ordnance. This film has offered no plausible way for our heroes to gain access to the base, unless Gramps plans to shoot their way in, which would be extremely foolish. Not only would the 3 of them certainly be killed, but the base would then be locked down, making Papa Brewster even more difficult to reach if they did somehow survive.
That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man.
You finished?
Let's give the film the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps the trio worked out a cunning plan to breach the defenses stealthily. We don't hear about it because the film wants it to be a surprise. Sure, fine. I prefer films showing rather than telling anyway. Kate sitting across the table from John is a nice visual cue that her hostility towards him is going down. The man is risking his life in an effort to save her father, so that helps. She mentions that John was her first kiss. They share a quiet laugh before Gramps' basic psychology subroutine kicks in again.
Your levity is good. It relieves tension and the fear of death.
It is remarkable how the humor in this film undercuts the tone so consistently. Before we saw instances of it lightening scenes that should have had a serious tone. Now we have as lighthearted an exchange as our leads have in this film, and Gramps casually brings up the fact that this is a suicide mission.
Brilliant.
It's an amusing line and I like Arnold's delivery, but it does not belong in this scene. Unlike our heroes, it is not too difficult to guess how a shape-shifting robot assassin could sneak into CRS. The music alerts us ominously that something is afoot, even though there is no doubt to whom these legs belong. Wait a minute. Why is the TX wearing her usual look, but in Air Force attire? Unless the TX's appearance is based on a lady who works here, why does she not disguise herself as someone who does? Do the writers think the audience would not be able to figure it out? Chalk another one up to the TX making poor decisions. And as for the retort that her appearance here does not cause any ill effects for her, she kills Papa Brewster after ensuring there will be no chance to shut Skynet down, that is insufficient. If we see decisions that are suboptimal and do not stand up to obvious questions, the character is diminished in our eyes even if said character does not fail as a result. Papa Brewster picks up the phone to answer the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Hang on, how long did it take him to get there? One does not keep such a higher-up waiting. Also, you used a headset earlier to communicate. Why didn't you have that with you earlier to talk to the chairman? That's at least as important as talking to your daughter.
If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
While we in the audience know that Skynet is more formidable than the military people realize, just why is Papa Brewster reluctant here? Earlier on, I ascribed it to Soldier's intuition, but we never really find out the reasons for his stance.
I still prefer to keep humans in the loop.
Okay, then what is this?
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
What is the problem then? Has Skynet ever exhibited suspicious behavior?
I'm not sure Skynet's ready.
Fine. Why? Why do you think that, besides the fact that the writers need Skynet to take over at a specific time? A throwaway line or two about anomalous things about Skynet, researchers hypothesizing recently about the potential for AI to increase its own capabilities more rapidly than previously believed. Something that activates Papa Brewster's spidey sense. That would do fine, but we are given none of that. This doesn't require massive changes, just a retort or two to the civilians about why he thinks Skynet still has bugs, and that he does not want to trust it with the nation's military might until they have been ironed out thoroughly. You could still have the chairman overrule him and give the order.
Execute Order 66.
Give Papa Brewster justification for his views. It is not enough that he is disposed to act in a way that the audience knows benefits the heroes. Give Papa Brewster better motivation and we will care more about him. It is especially glaring when contrasting Papa Brewster with Skynet's previous architect, Miles Dyson. Dyson believes that he is going to revolutionize the world with his creation. He changes course when presented with compelling evidence that his achievement would bring about an apocalypse. He voluntarily destroys his own creation and forfeits his life to save humanity. Papa Brewster, on the other hand, just doesn't think it's a good idea to use Skynet. Thus he was when we met him, thus he was later, thus he was all along. We get no character development, no motivation. He merely serves to make sure the button gets pressed when the writers want it to happen. In the meantime, the TX makes use of her nanobot tool to take over some security robots. I think this area would be quite well secured. Maybe she left a well-concealed trail of bodies stuffed in various closets, or, hell, maybe she has that body remover gadget from No One Lives Forever. Whatever. Honestly, it's surprising the screen does not say, Judgment Day, Y/N.
Sir? Shall I?
No.
Papa Brewster gives the audience false hope by saying no to the engineer. Instead, he's just being honorable and accepting responsibility for ending the world. With our heroes nowhere near, his slow, deliberate movements do not create any sense of hope that he will not press the button of doom.
Let's pray to God this works.
I wish he would treat the writers of this movie about as well as Skynet is going to treat you. Everything promptly goes haywire naturally.
Tony, what the hell is going on?
Daddy!
Why is the TX disguised as Kate? She is not authorized to stroll around the base, much less the command center. The TX has been wearing an Air Force uniform until now. Why would she switch to civilian garb? Are you really telling me that this
more intelligent
killing machine opted to don the appearance of a person who does not have access to this facility, when all she has to do is touch someone who works there, walk away, shapeshift into that individual, and head straight for her target? Yes, I realize the writers wanted to surprise us. That is why we have not shown the TX shapeshifting lately, and why we have not seen our heroes for a few minutes. I think this is also the reason the TX did not use Kate's guise when going to her apartment. If she had, we would be very conscious of the fact that she can masquerade as Kate. What a wet fart of a payoff in exchange for the TX making more bad choices. At any rate, the only way this would have been even slightly interesting would be if the real Kate were here, which we know is not the case because our heroes have not even infiltrated CRS yet.
Kate, what are you doing here?
Daddy! Get away from me!
What the hell? Not only did our heroes find a way in, not only did they manage to avoid tipping off security, they did so in an impossibly short amount of time and got to an important location in civilian clothing while carrying multiple weapons. I cannot put into words just how bad this writing is. It is the most glaringly stupid thing in this film. We receive zero information as to how our heroes managed this. The writers just teleported them where they needed to be to continue the plot. How can people who get paid to write for a living create this?
Are you stupid?
Yes.
You might say, Kate is the daughter of the man in charge of the base. They'd let her in. First of all, no. Visits by family onto standard military bases require the military member to bring his relation in through security. The protocols at CRS are undoubtedly even more stringent. Even if that were not true, it does nothing to explain how these two got in along with Kate while armed to the teeth. Hell, one of these dumbasses is Cop Killer McGee.
So what do we do?
The problem is that there is no good way to bring these groups together and make it a surprise for Papa Brewster. Direct permission from the commander of the base is the only way John, Kate, and Gramps could get into the command center. Shooting their way in is not an option, and even if it was, they would trip every alarm in the place and could not enter unannounced. I have no solution to offer. The writers put themselves in an impossible situation if they want to get this confrontation to occur logically.
And they know that they don't have to wait for the Earth to rotate on a 47-degree axis so the stars can touch the sky and create an equinox so they can see the Big Dipper. No, no, no.
I cannot decide whether this is a case of the writers being unable to reconcile this and saying, screw it, or whether their IQ is double as room temperatures. And what a pathetic payoff. Fake Kate is here for mere seconds before getting filled with lead by Gramps. In the commentary, Mostow talks about audience members thinking Kate had been shot to pieces. I don't see how they could. We hear metallic sounds as Kate takes fire. Even without the real Kate wearing plot armor, I think it is abundantly clear that this is the TX. Lastly, both the TX and Kate refer to Papa Brewster as Daddy. Daddy! Daddy! The strange thing is that the TX speaks first. How would she know that Kate calls him Daddy and not Dad? Or Father? Or Pops? Very odd. Watch out! Oh no. Is there a reason that vent was made of the flimsiest material ever? The more pressing question is whether the nearly indestructible android assassin has been destroyed. Let's go to our correspondent robot, who is at the scene.
Daddy, don't...
She'll be back.
To whom are you speaking? John and Kate are 20 plus feet away, and it is not said for their benefit. Do we really have a Terminator talking to himself? Why? Just have Gramps look down the shaft to make sure the TX is not an immediate threat, then turn back to the humans. Or have John ask, "Did you kill her?" "She'll be back." You get your nod to these lines, and it makes sense. It's almost as though the two ends are not mutually exclusive. Anyway, the TX's minions begin slaughtering the base personnel.
My office. On this floor, we have to get there. Put the access codes are in my safe.
On the way to Daddy's office, our heroes fight through a couple of T1s. Wait, so those miniguns can be fired after being ripped from their mountings? Why would that be so? Well, at least the movie shows cables running into the machine. These guns are fired electrically, after all. Let's keep moving. Considering the fact that Daddy could not know that Gramps could rip the safe door off its hinges, shouldn't he have immediately told Kate the combination? He's been shot 3 or 4 times. He could expire at any moment. Daddy tells our heroes that Crystal Peak is their only chance. You probably should have told them that on the way to your office. Yes, it makes it more dramatic for you to fill them in here and now, but you're not getting any Father of the Year award if you croak before providing the information necessary for your daughter's survival.
It's your only chance. You'll need a plane. The particle accelerator leads to the runway.
Why does the particle accelerator lead to the runway? Can't imagine that's going to prove convenient to the extent of being life-saving. And that killed nobody. Except Daddy. Actually, it looks as though he might have expired first. Anyways, what a weak attack that was. We don't even have John and Kate leap behind something.
Kate, we have to go. Kate! He wanted you to come with me. He wanted us to shut Skynet down.
Invoking the dead father's wishes is a good play to get Kate to come along given her emotional state. Yeah, let's talk about that. This has been the worst day of Kate's life by far. I say that with confidence because a worse one would have surely killed her.
Tell me. Please, 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 you have to let me go!
Oh my God.
Your fiancé is dead.
Hey, come on.
No,
What?
This movie takes place over a short span of time and involves the destruction of pretty much everything Kate holds dear. Yet her character is essentially static throughout the film. On the one hand, it is important that the audience bond with her some, so if she were to react the way a real person would to all this trauma, She would be such a mess that she would never endear herself to us. On the other, this would be solvable by making fewer terrible things happen to her. Maybe make Scott a steady boyfriend instead of a fiancé who lives with her, or write him out entirely. Also, give the poor woman some time to mourn. Remember how broken up Sarah was about her roommate Ginger's death? Even young John gets some reflection time after he learns his foster parents are dead. Both of those characters change dramatically over the courses of their respective films. Too much emotional trauma without reprieve, not enough impact. Claire Danes is a nice-looking girl. Oh well. You know, considering all it's been through, that jacket has held up even better than Kate's emotions. It's in mint condition. Our heroes stride into the hall to meet an old adversary.
Run!
Let's hope there is an alternate path to the airfield that still leads through the particle accelerator. Here we get our robotic rearguard undermining himself again. He does not realize his weapon is out of ammunition. Why? You would think his hyper-advanced CPU would have no trouble counting the shots fired, or that he would be fastidious in checking his ammo after engaging in combat. This isn't even necessary. You could have him discard the empty weapon earlier, or let him fire away at the TX, run out of ammo, and begin brawling. Again, even if you find this amusing, this makes him look foolish. Also, why did the TX stop at the other end of the hall, wait for Gramps to discover his magazine is dry, only then to begin advancing?
Who can say?
Moving on.
Are you sure you pressed the right button?
No, I wanted orange. It gave me lemon lime.
Your hand might have slipped.
I do not make mistakes of that kind.
The machine would not make a mistake.
It's the maintenance man. He knows I like orange.
So you think the staff has some kind of plot?
Yes, they do that on purpose.
So we finally have the brawl between the essentially invincible TX and the badly outmatched Gramps. Neither one's attacks accomplish much of anything besides destruction of the bathroom. Yeah, really grind that boot against her face. That'll show her. Maybe you should get a bit of distance from the TX, seeing as...
TX is faster, more powerful, and more intelligent.
Oh well, this porcelain will do the trick. What, are you surprised that the urinal gave way and not the TX?
Yes.
The two combatants trade several more attacks that do no apparent damage, until we get this moment. What a way to symbolize the Terminator franchise at this point. Going down the toilet with sufficient violence that the toilet does not survive. As the scene continues, the writers make it clear that these killing machines are immensely formidable. Remember when the T-800 delayed the T-1000 in the steel mill? The two combatants were comparable in fighting ability, but the T-1000 gains edges in the fight through surprise, shape-shifting abilities, and quickness, leaving his adversary trapped and resuming his pursuit. The T-800 must sacrifice an arm to get free, a steep price that renders him unable to hold his own in the next confrontation. Efficient, plot-relevant, and serious in tone. Whereas this fight lasts 90 seconds, leaves our combatants basically undamaged and still fighting, and includes comedy that creates a confusing tone. Moving on. We get a quick status update on John and Kate. They are not dead and are... somewhere. Nice move. A fun spin on what the T-1000 did here.
It's not a rip-off, it's a homage.
Makes the TX seem...
more intelligent.
For a change.
Now everyone will see why I need a skull gun.
One thing about that, though. When we saw the TX test her flamethrower, it was on her right arm. Now, after reversing her body, it is somehow on the left. Perhaps she has a flamethrower in each arm? Why not a plasma cannon in each? Anyway, the fight soon goes south for our plucky killer robot. Paying respects to a fallen adversary. A noble gesture that only... Wait, what? Why is the TX bothering to infect Gramps? If she anticipates the body reconnecting the head, just rip it off entirely and dropkick it out the window. You are spending valuable time taking control of a machine that is slower than you and whose head you just stomped off. Meanwhile, John and Kate have likely made the journey from somewhere to somewhere else by now. Yeah, see? There they are. But an HK appears and things are about to get dicey. I have no idea how much one of those costs, but you'd really think the Air Force would design it to be sturdier than that. Anyways, this is a chance for Kate to show some mettle. It helps give her more credibility as a great future warrior. Fine. I don't even particularly mind that John isn't the one to shoot the thing down. My only complaint is that Kate should have been quicker on the draw, snatching up the rifle as John reaches out for it and dealing out high-velocity lead. John laying there gormlessly does not sit well. Fear not. The writers know just what to do to redress this.
What? Nothing. You remind me of my mother.
Nothing Oedipal going on here. Could have just said, nothing. Good shooting, let's go. John can be impressed by Kate's moxie without being awkward as hell. Upon reaching the particle accelerator, our heroes see the TX approaching their position via security cameras. In addition to alerting John and Kate to danger, this no doubt creates a sinking feeling for the duo. Was Gramps destroyed? Did she evade him? Who's going to give them relationship advice now?
What are you doing?
I suspect that the process of firing up a particle accelerator is sufficiently complicated that a noob would not be able to do it in less than 10 seconds. Anyways, the TX shows up and begins chasing John and Kate. She manages to catch up with a car with the aid of geography, yet here she just jogs after them. You would think she would be able to overtake them with ease.
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you?
That is correct.
I have no idea what these readouts mean, but, something is happening.
Just die, you bitch!
Unfortunately, it is too late to get the audience to buy into Kate having anything resembling an arc.
Has it come away? Oh.
While Gramps gets his head on straight, the TX uses a built-in saw to free herself from the particle accelerator. I guess she decided to try this after glaring at her targets did not kill them?
There's my father's plane. I trained on it.
Okay. Did John just assume you knew how to fly this entire time? Shouldn't he have said to Daddy, "But I can't fly"? And Kate would have said, "I can. It's been a few years, but I can do it." This line is dropped here to assure the audience that it makes sense for Kate to be able to fly. Put it earlier, movie. The closer your justifying line is to the thing it justifies, especially when characters should have acted differently without it prior, the less effective it is. In any case, our heroes have reached the hangar. How the hell did he get here so fast? We see him getting his head back on at the same time the TX, which is much closer, begins cutting herself free. He's not even running! How did he manage this? Oh, right. Teleportation.
Get away from me! Please! Now!
Before Kate can start the engine, Gramps reaches the aircraft.
You can't kill a human being. You said so yourself.
When? When? Gramps never says anything remotely like that in this film. John cannot be referring to this.
I swear I will not kill anyone.
It's as though a line was cut from the script and somebody forgot to eliminate this reference to it. Even if that somehow made it past the writers, the director, the actors, you'd think the editor would have picked up on it. You would think.
Let him go!
Oh, Kate, you poor girl. Now we get John attempting to persuade Gramps not to kill him. You may expect me to mock the writers on account of this?
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with.
But the battle within Gramps' CPU makes sense.
What is your mission?
To ensure the survival of John Connor and Catherine Brewster.
It's also a good spot for John to show his cunning and accept his destiny. Much as I hate the destiny angle, it does run through the film and John needs to come to terms with it. In addition, this is a small payoff for future Kate not programming Gramps to follow John's orders. Instead of the battle in his CPU being that of, am I a good guy or a bad guy, it comes down to a logical contradiction. Machines carry out orders. His orders conflict. Awkward how he landed on his back there, but okay. Okay. The remarkable recuperative powers of Catherine Brewster, ladies and gentlemen. With Gramps in sleep mode, John and Kate take off for Crystal Peak.
John, what if we can't stop it?
There's enough C4 here to take out 10 supercomputers.
Plenty of explosives? Good. Suppose there are robots with missiles and miniguns. Surely Skynet is protecting itself heavily from any human attacks. Come to think of it, shouldn't these two expect US military units to be assaulting Crystal Peak in the hope of destroying Skynet? Too much thinking, move on.
What's wrong with your eyes?
John and Kate make it to their destination and find it deserted. Why is no one at Crystal Peak? If this is to be used as a refuge for high-ranking officials during a nuclear attack, you would think there would be personnel here to ensure its security. In the commentary, Mostow says that this facility was abandoned decades ago, which begs the question, why did Daddy have access codes to a long-defunct refuge? You may expect me to tear into the writers for magically allowing the TX to find our heroes again, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that the TX learned of Crystal Peak from Gramps' memory. Anyways, things are looking dire for our heroes, when suddenly... When I first saw this, I thought it was incredibly stupid. Now it's still stupid, but I realized that given the interval between arrivals, Gramps saw the TX crash her helicopter. Thus she would not be far, and he opts to crash his through the door also. Whether nailing her with the chopper was intentional is unknown. In any event, it gets him in the fray with maximum speed.
I'm back.
See, this line works much better than...
She'll be back.
He's saying it to someone else, and it has some meaning. However, why does Gramps shutting down free him from the TX's control? In Terminator 2, the T-800 didn't turn hostile on Sarah and John after being rebooted. Are we to believe that the humans of the future are more adept at reprogramming Terminators than Skynet's most advanced agent? What happened to...
a new order of intelligence?
Imagine if the Shire's best smith turned out to be more skilled in that field than Sauron, who was once the greatest servant to the god of smiths. At any rate, the blast door begins to close, prompting Gramps into action.
Get to the chopper!
Thank you.
We'll meet again.
It cuts no ice with me that this is meant to make the reveal earlier more meaningful. We still have the timeline issues and the questions about future Kate sending this exact Terminator back. Anyway.
Thank you.
Your gratitude is not required.
The TX grabs John's ankle, but Gramps breaks the hold and manages to drag her back to him as he accesses his remaining power core. How he manages to do this while no longer holding up the blast door is unclear. I mentioned that the TX hitting Gramps with the plasma cannon, her most successful use of it, would have serious consequences for her. Had she not fired that shot, thereby damaging his fuel cell, he would not have cut open his torso and thus allowed him to blow her to smithereens now. Perhaps she should have used the flamethrower all along. Oh well.
You are terminated.
A bomb's a bad choice for close-range combat.
The tendency to abuse the T-850's gravitas for the sake of laughs and a wider appeal maimed this film. More than anything, people bought tickets to see Arnold return as this character. The Terminator is a force of nature. He radiates fearsome power and cold intelligence. Even in his turn as a face in the previous film, we know that the only thing keeping him from racking up a body count to rival the original Terminator is John's order. Now we get to see him diminished, made into a laughingstock. One must wonder what the hell the writers were thinking. It reeks of people meddling with something, the source of the popularity of which is obscure to them. 3 things stood out to me in the director's commentary for Terminator 3. First, Mostow comes off as what wrestling folks call a mark. A big fan who does not understand how the business works. Marks are captivated by high spots. They value spectacle over storytelling. Mostow is a Terminator mark. He loves the first 2 movies, but he does not understand what makes them tick. For instance, he talks about fans of the previous film needing to be won over.
A lot of people would come into this movie with their arms folded, literally or figuratively, across their chest, and some amount of skepticism of like, all right, well, come on, it's been 12 years. Does this franchise still have it? Does the Terminator as a character still have it?
Okay, that's a fair concern.
and I thought it was important to use humor very early on to win the audience over.
And a conclusion that, as previously covered, undermines the title character, repetitively. Second, a majority of his commentary pertains to visual effects or the image on the screen. He talks about making certain character choices, such as the TX being slow coming out of the clinic and bringing her weapon to bear, on the basis of allowing the special effects to look good. It does look good, at the cost of the TX failing her mission. He tries to cover for this by claiming that she is calm, confident that she will catch her prey in the end. In contrast, the T-1000 moves slowly in pursuit when he has his target cornered. When chasing is necessary, he moves with urgency. Remember the TX transforming in front of Kate? There is a featurette on the DVD all about how that was done. Mostow clearly values the aesthetic highly. In its pursuit, he sacrifices plot and characters, the heart and soul of storytelling. Finally, Mostow strikes me as a man without a strong will. He talks about the choice of shooting in California instead of someplace much cheaper. His reasons were not wanting to be too far from home and a desire to do the local artisans a favor by keeping the shoot in Cali. I have a hard time believing that a certain Canadian would have allowed such considerations to stop him from making the movie just the way he wanted it. If you do not believe me, watch the hour-long behind-the-scenes feature on the making of The Abyss. With the title character rendered a mere shadow of himself, having a well-constructed antagonist becomes even more important than it usually is. The TX is a victim of poor conception, too powerful to be cunning and not kill our heroes. It is no coincidence that the most powerful Terminator in the series thus far is the least intimidating. She should be scarily clever, relentlessly on our hero's heels, only being thwarted by things outside her control. Instead, her failures all stem directly from apathy, stupidity, or both as the case may be. Let's rejoin the humans and wrap this up. Given the short amount of time John and Kate have to run, it seems to me the explosion should have killed them both. In any case, the final scene of the film reveals that Daddy sent John and Kate to a long-abandoned, but still powered and supplied, bunker. From there, John takes command of disjointed military units via radio, and begins his ascension to leader of humanity in the fight against Skynet. He provides a closing monologue in which he says there was never any chance of destroying Skynet, as it is software and not hardware. This begs an obvious question. If Skynet is not bound to particular hardware, then how did the humans ever manage to destroy it? Could it not have sequestered copies of itself in hidden places? Maybe underwater or out in space? This makes the prospect of annihilating Skynet as nightmarishly difficult as killing Voldemort. Except Voldemort is smart enough to hide his Horcruxes as nondescript objects in random places. What a fine problem with which to saddle any sequels. It's a bit meta, really. Just as humanity cannot be certain of eliminating the machine menace, so too can we, the audience, never be free of new Terminator movies. Anyways, we close out with a zoom in on Gramps' skull as John tells us he will never stop fighting, because that's what the Terminator taught him and that the battle is just beginning. And that's the movie. Good grief. The writing in this film is terrible, robbing beloved characters of their victory and proceeding by virtue of insane coincidences and in spite of obvious problems. The four main players are a dumb broad, a goofy killer robot, a man who should be ready to pull off an entire Sabaton album's worth of badass deeds, and a woman who loses everything over the course of 13 hours and is pretty much unchanged. We have questionable existence, weird editing, a glove throw and insults, the glasses, the coincidence convergence, licking random blood, John forgetting unforgettable things, gas station retardation, empty threat, a running gag, all the dumb shit said in the RV, teleportation. I think you get the idea. The amount of idiotic or broken things in this script is immense. It really is staggering to me. I am not going to apportion blame for this beyond two cases: the writers and Arnold Schwarzenegger. The former requires no elaboration.
Are you crazy? Those guys are retards.
Yep.
Arnold deserves mentioning because he is the only person among those involved who could have made sure this movie never happened. There is no way a studio would have greenlit this project without him coming back. I said that Mostow came across as a mark to me in the director's commentary. Listening to the actor's track makes me think that Arnold was one too. He talks about the sunglasses being important, the clothes, the motorcycle, things he believes the audience wants to see. While there is nothing wrong with including those elements, they are not what made the character or the films resonate in the past. We cared because we had characters we were invested in battling or fleeing two of the most relentless, cunning, and merciless killers to ever stalk the screen. No amount of nostalgia, comedy, or spectacle will make up for a Terminator film lacking these crucial elements. This movie sucks. I have no doubt that Terminator 3 has its defenders. If this video and its arguments reach any of them, I look forward to their counter-arguments. In addition, I am sure they can point out mistakes I have made here. No doubt others will bring up even better alternatives than I have offered. Let's see where this goes. To those of you who watched this video from start to finish, I hope you enjoyed it. While I probably come across as dour, I had a great deal of fun making this video. To my cousin Tim, thanks for introducing me to this abysmal film. I would surely have watched it eventually without your influence, but your confident assertion of its enjoyability helped make my wrath all the more indelible. This video is for you, Timmy. As to the future, who knows? I plan to watch the 3 remaining Terminator films. Perhaps Terminator Salvation shall come to the rescue of Terminator 3. Or inspire a video of its own. All I know about it is that
it's fucking distracting!
And it is in the desert. Anyways, this one came about more than a decade after I first saw it, so I do not advise holding your breath. We shall see. For now then, farewell.